and distinguished professor, patron of KEA and distinguished professor of Gujarat Institute of Finance and Taxation. Respected Professor T.M. Thomas Isaac, our beloved former finance minister and distinguished professor and distinguished professor, patron of KEA and distinguished professor of Gujarat Institute of Finance and Taxation. Respected Professor T.M. Thomas Isaac, our beloved former finance minister and distinguished professor and distinguished professor, patron of KEA and distinguished professor of Professor K.N. Harilal, the commentators of this session, members of KEA Kerala Economic Association who are physically present here and who have logged in, our beloved students, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor and pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of the outgoing Executive Committee of Kerala Economic Association and Gujarat Institute of Finance and Taxation, on my own personal behalf, to welcome all of you for this panel discussion on Kerala Economy Future Directives. As you're aware, this is the culmination of a series of lectures that KEA and Gujarat Institute of Finance and Taxation organized as part of our effort to understand the various issues that confront in the Kerala economy. And I'm very happy that the whole idea of initiating this lecture series originated from Professor T.M. Thomas Isaac. Then he was the finance minister of our state. And when I moved this idea to Professor Mayuman, he told it's a wonderful idea. Let us jointly do it with KEA. And in fact, many of you got actively involved in the process. And we had an occasion to listen to 17 prominent scholars from within and outside the country who have done substantial work on Kerala economy. And in fact, most important of those 17 was the two panel discussions which were wherein we had an opportunity to hear the younger generation's reflections on the lectures that happened. Now, today, we have three prominent scholars, not only scholars who have undertaken substantial research on Kerala economy. They, in different ways, had the opportunity to influence the policy decisions in the country. We have, and my great pleasure to welcome all of them and all of you. And Professor Mayuman doesn't need no introduction, doesn't need any introduction. There is hardly any aspects of Kerala economy that has not attracted the attention of Professor Mayuman in his research and writing. Apart from that, he has been constructively contributing to the state's development in different capacities, chairing different committees. And you are all aware of the role that Professor Mayuman played in the establishment of Kerala Economic Association, and he is our most respected patron. On behalf of the Executive Committee members of KEA and all those who have joined here and those who have logged in, I welcome you, sir, for this meeting. Again, welcoming someone like, there is no need of introduction again. As I said, Professor, I had a great pleasure, great learning experience in that sense, working with Professor T.M. Thomas Isaac. I often used to say that if you give him a piece of iron, he will never ask, "Oh, why you brought this idea." After 5 minutes, he will come back to me with a piece of gold. The same idea he will put into his framework and put it back to you without blaming you, you could not come back. No. I think it was indeed one of my most fruitful period of my academic life was working with him under his guidance. And in fact, as I said it earlier, the whole idea of lecture series of transforming Kerala economy is in fact the brainchild of Professor T.M. Thomas Isaac. And even now, at various occasions, we consult him, and he's very much kind of part of GIT family. And so thank you very much for all your encouragement, support that you have been giving, and with most warmly and with a lot of affection. On behalf of everyone present here, we welcome you to this meeting. As I said, the three speakers here are the people who have undertaken not only research, they have also been able to influence the policy making process. You are aware of Professor Thomas Isaac's role in decentralized development, and you are aware of Kudumbasri, you are aware of the latest idea of how transforming Kerala to a knowledge economy that he has come up with. And in fact, I know I have been kind of a person watching them from a close quarters. I know how Professor Harilal has been associated with Professor Isaac even before the decentralization process. And Ken Harilal, apart from undertaking research, as the member of the State Planning Board, he has been instrumental in many of the heartbreaking ideas like plant space as planning board member, and his pet idea of decentralization, which he worked with Professor Thomas Isaac, and of course also with Professor Mayman. And I'm very happy that he's also not a stranger to Kerala Economic Association. He was the former vice president. And thank you, Professor Harilal, and I welcome you once again on behalf of all of us to this. Now I have my vice president and my joint secretary and other executive committee members. They need not be welcomed, but all the time they are with us. And it is in fact, I take a lot of credit for all what they are doing. So with a lot of affection and appreciation for all their input, I welcome to this meeting. And also, I'm especially thankful to all those who have taken the trouble in terms of bearing with a sleepless night, because you would have, most of you traveled long distance from Kasaragod to this place. Some people are even now on their way driving down from Trichur. You have taken a lot of trouble. And in fact, this is an indication of your commitment, I must say. And we appreciate you for that. And we also know that you all work under severe constraints, because hardly any departments today in this state has got decent faculty student ratio, and your workload is immense. Anyway, despite all that, you are taking your time and energy for this, and I especially thank all those who came forward to be the commentators. The whole idea is, in fact, to listen to you, because these are the first generation. Here on the right side we have the front side we have the second generation, and we would like to we would like to hear your views, and thank you very much for coming forward to be the commentators. And also the right to comment is not just restricted to those who have came forward. Others are also free, those who are online. So I welcome all those who are agreed to be the commentators, and I also welcome all the other members, those who have are physically here, and non-members who have physically here and offline. With these words, I welcome all of you, particularly if I have missed out anyone. All are welcome. So may I request Professor M.A. Oman to chair the session and conduct the proceeding. Yeah, you can. And we will be, all the speakers have their collective decision is that they'll be speaking less. They are here in a mode of listening mode. So they will be speaking less, and some water. Yeah.
Friends, yesterday was my birthday, and I was
which we are going to celebrate today.
Till late night, I had relatives and people coming. So I felt exhausted and wanted to get out of, to be excused. And and Joseph called Ivor in half a mood to tell him I am not in a mood to come. But he said, you will be there at 10 o'clock, all right? Then I can't say no. Last year, my good friend, Dr. Thomas Isaac and Joseph took the trouble of celebrating, if that's a bad word.
It's not a bad word.
No, not a bad word. Okay. Last year, when I completed 90 years, young people will be very surprised. And now when I came here and looked at the faces, most of them are new to me. But very agile and very, very promising faces. And I feel doubly confident about the future of KEA. I would lay down all responsibilities and hand over to these young faces that I, not faces, personalities. That's one. A little briefing will be that nearly 8 or 9 years ago, a few people came to me. I was in the hospital at that time. So I'm very slow and take away your time. That's bad. All two my legs were hopelessly punctured, and I was trying like Wallathon. Yadanagambilidam ende Karnayukmam, Vadanabhibhushida Matramaikam. Kadanam is Urivakugan, Ambigan in Padasarasi Duha, Dasan Aliunan. Nina Prartichi Ibla. And the Kalne soon could Tivilla. Padasarasi Dasan Anand Varanit. Apa you were അതിൽ വളരെ കുറച്ച് പേര് മാത്രം എൻ്റെ പഴയ സ്റ്റുഡൻസ് ഉള്ളൂ. ബാക്കിയുള്ളവരൊക്കെ കാസർഗോഡ് അവിടെ നിന്നൊക്കെ വന്നു. ഞാൻ ഓർത്തു ഈ കിടപ്പിൽ ഒരു പരിപാടിയും നടക്കില്ല. നിങ്ങളെ കൊണ്ട് ഇത് നടക്കുമോ എന്ന് എനിക്കറിയത്തില്ല. നിങ്ങൾ കുറച്ചു പേരെ ഒക്കെ സംഘടിപ്പിക്കും എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട്, അയ്യോ മലയാളത്തിലായി പോയി. എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ അവര് കുറച്ചുപേരെയൊക്കെ സംഘടിപ്പിച്ചിട്ട് ഞാൻ ഒരു പ്രസംഗം ഡിക്റ്റേറ്റ് ചെയ്തു ആ മീറ്റിങ്ങിൽ. അതെൻ്റെ മകള് എഴുതിയെടുത്ത് അവിടെ പോയി വായിച്ചു. അങ്ങനെയാണ് ഇത് തുടക്കം. അപ്പൊ അവര് നിശ്ചയിച്ചു 1000 രൂപ പെർമനന്റ് മെമ്പർഷിപ്പ് എന്നോ മറ്റോ പറഞ്ഞു തുടങ്ങി. പക്ഷെ 6-7 മാസം കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടും അതൊന്നും അതുപോലെ കിടന്നു. ഞാൻ എഴുന്നേറ്റ് വീണ്ടും ഇതിനെ ചലിപ്പിക്കുന്നതിനുള്ള ശ്രമത്തിലായി. പണമില്ല, പ്രയാസങ്ങൾ ഒരുപാട്. അപ്പോ ഒരു കോൺഫറൻസ്, ആനുവൽ കോൺഫറൻസ് KEAയുടെ ജീവനാവണം എന്നുള്ള താല്പര്യത്തോടു കൂടി ആനുവൽ കോൺഫറൻസ് ആദ്യം ശക്തമായി നടത്തുന്നതിന് അതിൻ്റെ ഡീറ്റെയിൽസ് ഒന്നും ഞാൻ ഇപ്പോൾ ഓർക്കുന്നില്ല. എങ്കിലും അന്ന് ഞാൻ ബോധപൂർവം ഒരു കാര്യം ചെയ്തു. ആദ്യത്തെ പ്രസംഗം എഴുതി പ്രിന്റ് ചെയ്ത് എൻ്റെ കയ്യിലുണ്ട്. ഇതൊക്കെ നിങ്ങൾ കണ്ടിട്ടേ കാണുകയില്ല. കാരണം ആരെങ്കിലും വായിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടോ? ഞാൻ 2-3 കോപ്പി ഇപ്പൊ സംഘടിപ്പിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടോ എന്ന് തന്നെ എന്തായാലും തോമസ് ഐസക്കിനും എൻ്റെ സുഹൃത്ത് ഹരിലാലിനും ഇദ്ദേഹത്തിനും കൊടുക്കും. പിന്നെ ഒരു കോപ്പിയേ ഉള്ളൂ, അത് ആരെങ്കിലും ചോദിച്ചവർക്ക് കൊടുക്കും. ഇതിന്റെ ടൈറ്റില് കേരള ഡെവലപ്മെന്റ് ഇൻ റിട്രോസ്പെക്ട് ആൻഡ് പ്രോസ്പെക്ട് എന്ന്. ഇന്നലെ എനിക്ക് വായിക്കാൻ പറ്റിയില്ലെന്ന് ഞാൻ ഇതിനകത്ത് കൂടെ ഒന്ന് കണ്ണോടിച്ചു. അപ്പൊ എനിക്കറിയാം, എനിക്ക് മാത്രമേ ഇത് നല്ലതാണെന്ന് പറയാൻ പറ്റത്തുള്ളൂ. കാരണം പലരും ഇത് നല്ലതാണെന്ന് പറയാനോ എന്നുള്ളത് വളരെ അപൂർവമാണ്. എങ്കിലും വായിച്ചു നോക്കിയപ്പം എനിക്ക് തോന്നി ഗംഭീരമാണ്. അങ്ങനെ തുടക്കം കുറിച്ചു. തുടക്കം കുറിക്കുമ്പോൾ എൻ്റെ കൂടെ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നവരുടെ പേരൊക്കെ ഇതിൽ കൊടുത്ത് പുള്ളിക്കണം എന്തെങ്കിലും റെഫറൻസിൽ എന്ന് നോക്കിയപ്പോൾ സന്തോഷ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരാൾ അതിനകത്തൊരു അംഗമായിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ പുള്ളിയുടെ തീസിസ് ഞാൻ വായിച്ചു. അത് ഒന്നൊന്നര ഒരു തീസിസാണ്. ഇന്ന് ഇവിടെ പലതും ഗുഡ്, ബാഡ് ആൻഡ് ഇൻഡിഫറൻറ്റ്, ബാഡ് തന്നെ ധാരാളം, പ്ലേജറിസം ധാരാളം ഉള്ള ഈ സന്ദർഭത്തിൽ ഒന്നാന്തരം ഒരു തീസിസ് അയലെഴുതി. ഇതിനൊരു സമ്മാനം കൊടുക്കുന്നതിനും പണം ഉണ്ടാക്കണം. അത് ഈ പ്രസംഗത്തെ ഞാൻ കോട്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. പിന്നെ അന്ന് ആക്റ്റീവായിട്ട് എന്നോടൊപ്പം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു മഞ്ജു. വന്നിട്ടുണ്ടായിരിക്കും. ഉണ്ട്. മഞ്ജു വളരെ ഇപ്പോഴും അങ്ങനെ തന്നെയാണ്, സജീവമായി. അപ്പൊ അവരൊരു പേപ്പർ എഴുതി, അതും ഞാൻ ഇതിൽ കൊള്ളിച്ചു. ചുമ്മാ അതെല്ലാം കൂടെ പാഡ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ളതല്ലെന്ന് നിങ്ങൾ വായിച്ചാൽ മനസ്സിലാവും. അങ്ങനെ യുവതലമുറയെ സജീവമായി കേരളത്തിന്റെ സമ്പദ്ഘടനയുമായി ആക്റ്റീവായിട്ട് ബന്ധിപ്പിക്കുന്ന ഒരു സജീവ ഘടകമാകണം എന്നുള്ള ആഗ്രഹത്തോടാണ് ഞാൻ ഇത് തുടങ്ങിയത്. അപ്പോഴും ആനുവൽ കോൺഫറൻസ് എവിടെ വെച്ച് നടത്തണം എന്നുള്ള ഒരു ബുദ്ധിമുട്ട്. അപ്പൊ തേവര കോളേജുകാർ പറഞ്ഞ് ഞങ്ങൾ അവിടെ വെച്ച് നടത്താം. ഞങ്ങൾ അവിടെ പോയി. അന്ന് എന്നോടൊപ്പം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. പിന്നീട് കുറച്ചാള് വിട്ടു നിന്ന് ഇന്നലെ എന്നെ വിളിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നു സർപ്രൈസ് ആയിട്ട്. പ്രിയേഷ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന പ്രിയേഷ് എന്നെ വിളിച്ച് എന്നെ ഗവർണർ ഇത് നോമിനേറ്റ് ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നു സെനറ്റ് അംഗമായി. ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു ഞങ്ങളുടെ മീറ്റിംഗ് നാളെ വരണം. അത് വേറെ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് വേറെ പരിപാടി ഉള്ളതുകൊണ്ട് വരികയില്ല എന്നാൽ ഇതിന്റെ കോപ്പി ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ആവശ്യത്തിലുള്ള കോപ്പി, അങ്ങനെ അദ്ദേഹം 4 കോപ്പി തന്നതാണ് എൻ്റെ കയ്യിലുള്ളത്. ഞങ്ങൾ പലവട്ടം പറയാൻ ഈ കഥയെല്ലാം പറയത്തില്ല കേട്ടോ. പലവട്ടം അവിടെ പണം ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടി ഇരിഞ്ഞാലക്കുട കോളേജിലെ ഒരു പ്രൊഫസർ തോമസ് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. തോമസിനോട് പറഞ്ഞു, തോമസെ അംഗങ്ങളൊന്നുമില്ല, 10-40 പേര്, ഇപ്പൊ എത്ര ഉണ്ടെന്ന് എനിക്കറിയില്ല, കുറച്ച് പൈസയും ഉണ്ടാക്കണമല്ലോ. അപ്പൊ പുള്ളി, സാർ അങ്ങ് പോയാൽ മതി, ഞങ്ങള് എക്സിക്യൂട്ടീവ് കമ്മിറ്റി അവിടെ ദേവര കോളേജിൽ കൂടണം, എങ്ങനെയാണ് അവിടെ ഇത് നടത്തേണ്ടതെന്ന് ആലോചിക്കാൻ. ഞങ്ങൾ അവിടെ കൂടി. അപ്പൊ അവിടുത്തെ അച്ഛൻ എന്നോട് പറഞ്ഞു, ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഹോളൊക്കെ തരാം, കുറച്ച് പൈസ അതിന് തരണം. ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു, അച്ഛാ ഞങ്ങളൊക്കെ തന്നെ ഇലനക്കിനായിട്ട് ചെറുനക്കിനായ ആളരുത് അച്ഛന്. അപ്പോ അച്ഛൻ പറഞ്ഞു, ഹോളിന് കാശൊന്നും വേണ്ടെന്ന്. പിന്നെ അവിടുത്തെ ചായ കുടിക്കെല്ലാം വാങ്ങിക്കും. എന്തായാലും അത് ആദ്യത്തെ മീറ്റിംഗ് നടന്നു, വളരെ ഗംഭീരമായിട്ട് നടന്നു. അവരുടെ സഹകരണം വളരെ ഉണ്ടായി. വേറെ ഞങ്ങൾ പണം ഉണ്ടാക്കി, അതിൽ നിന്ന് മിച്ചം ഉണ്ടായി. തോമസ് തന്നെ ആ ദിവസം എക്സിക്യൂട്ടീവ് കമ്മിറ്റി കൂടിയ ദിവസം 110 പേരെ ചേർത്ത് 1,00,000 ചെല്ലുവാൻ രൂപയും തലയിൽ എടുത്തുകൊണ്ട് വന്ന് എൻ്റെ മേശപ്പുറത്ത് വെച്ചു. അത്ര ആക്റ്റീവായിട്ട് പ്രവർത്തിച്ച കൊണ്ട് ധാരാളം കോൺഫറൻസസ് ഞങ്ങൾ നടത്തി, വർക്ക്ഷോപ്പുകൾ നടത്തി, ഇന്ത്യയിലെ പ്രമുഖരെ പങ്കെടുപ്പിച്ചുള്ള വർക്ക്ഷോപ്പുകൾ നടത്തി. അതിൽ പ്രധാനമായിട്ടുള്ളത് അരവിന്ദ് സുബ്രഹ്മണ്യൻ ഇതിൽ സജീവമായിട്ട് ഞങ്ങളോട് സഹകരിച്ചു. അന്നത്തെ എക്കണോമിക് അഡ്വൈസറായിരുന്നു അദ്ദേഹം തന്നെ. ആ ഒരു സർവേയെ കുറിച്ച് എക്സ്പ്ലെയിൻ ചെയ്യാൻ ഇരിഞ്ഞാലക്കുട ക്രൈസ്റ്റ് കോളേജ് വന്നു. ആ ഹോള് മുഴുവനും ഫുള്ളായിരുന്ന ആൾ. അതിനുശേഷം അന്ന് ഇരുദയരാജനാണ് വൈസ് പ്രസിഡന്റ്. ഇരുദയരാജൻ ഞങ്ങളെല്ലാം ചായ കുടിക്കുമ്പോൾ അദ്ദേഹത്തോട് പറഞ്ഞു, അതിനുശേഷമുള്ള ഇക്കണോമിക് സർവേയിൽ എല്ലാം എൻ്റെ പേര് അവര്, കാരണം ഓരോ ചോദ്യം ചോദിക്കുന്നതിന് മറുപടി കൊടുത്തിരുന്നത് കൊണ്ട് അവർ അക്നോളജ് ചെയ്തു. ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു, ഡീസെൻട്രലൈസേഷൻ ഇക്കണോമിക് സർവേ കൊണ്ടുവരണം, നോക്കാം. ഇരുദയരാജൻ പറഞ്ഞു, ഡെമോഗ്രാഫിക് ട്രാൻസിഷൻ കൊണ്ടുവരണം. ഇരുദയരാജനെ ഡൽഹിക്ക് വിളിച്ച് പല റൗണ്ടിൽ അത് വിഷയമാക്കി, എക്കണോമിക് സർവേയിൽ അതൊരു വിഷയമാക്കി. അടുത്ത വർഷം ഒന്നാന്തരം ഒരു ചാപ്റ്റർ, നിങ്ങൾ വായിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടോ എന്ന് എനിക്കറിയത്തില്ല, ഡീസെൻട്രലൈസ്ഡ് ഗവേണൻസിനെ കുറിച്ച് 4th ചാപ്റ്ററാണ്. 2016-17 എക്കണോമിക് സർവേയിലുണ്ട്. അത് വിളിച്ചു. അങ്ങനെ പിന്നീട് കുറച്ച് ഞാനതിന് നറേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല. പിന്നീട് ഉള്ള സംഭവങ്ങളിൽ കുറച്ച് നാള്, ഇപ്പൊ കഴിഞ്ഞ 2 കൊല്ലം ഏകദേശം ഇതിൻ്റെ എല്ലാ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങളും ജോസഫാണ്. ജോസഫിന്റെ സമയം, yet too many irons in the fire, but yet he took a very active role and sustained the association. My request to all of you is that take the baton from him, carry it forward, make it a dynamic institution. And before I pass on to say something about today's subject, I appeal to you, because you should have it in Malayalam as well as in English, and you should know that widening knowledge is a great task and is a mission in itself. Therefore, it will be for you to take it forward. ചോരതുടിക്കും ചിറകുകളെ പേറുവന്നി പന്തങ്ങൾ എണ്ണിയിടാത്തൊരു പുരുഷായുസുകൾ വെണ്ണീറാവാം പുകയാവാം. So you have to take the baton forward, and I hope it will be done in good time. Very briefly on the topic is on the future of Kerala. Even this contains a tremendous aspect of it. I forgot Hari Kumar was one of the early supporters with me in the exercise. I turned beside and saw him. We were when I saw him, I remember a story that he told me, "Sir, do you know Geojit?" I said, "I know George." You asked for help from him. I telephoned and he gave some money, and we had a big dinner hosted by. So we had now coming back. I don't want to be very personal and anecdotal. Coming to this exercise, we have two eminent policy makers with us today. Dr. Thomas Isaac and Dr. Harilal, who still have, I believe, their hands on the plow. And when you look at the future, we have to start only from where we are by a very thorough examination of the existing story. So I am not going into that, the details. And then the reform process should start from there, analyzing the contemporary crisis from an extremely objective, non-partisan way. You can be political, but extremely rational and non-partisan analysis of this. We should have a perspective. It's easy to say, Navakerala. But you should have the passion and also not rhetoric, and also the sinews of strength to make Navakerala a reality. The renaissance of the past, where a state, a community that was deeply deep in class iniquities and caste nonsense, were thrown overboard through a process of social transformation effected by social reform movements, all of the story you know, which means that we have the transformative power. The Communist Party was also instrumental in transforming the state once upon a time. I am not quite sure of the contemporary situation. And I am not quite happy also about what the unfurling trauma in the state. I don't want to mince words on those. But I am not going into the details of that. But when we go and contemplate on the future, there should be a vision, a sagalya darshanam. And analyze your wrong and say what social reform, what governance reform was, fiscal reforms what other reforms you should have on a series of reforms that you should have. A lot of structural transformation. This book does certainly contain a lot of truth about, at that time, criticizing the Congress government that was in power. Yeah. So the structural transformation, reallocation of labor, and we have a unique trajectory of development and growth compared to the rest of India. In the reallocation of labor, more than 90% are in non-agricultural sector today. And the contribution of agriculture is also coming down, very low compared to the rest of India. Yet, we cannot dismiss Kerala agriculture altogether, because we are on the basis of that. The structural transformation is what Arvind Subramaniam and Rohit Lamba has written in a paper in the Economic Perspective recently. They say that Indian development is having a precocious servicification. Precocious servicification is much more in Kerala than the rest of India, because service sector led growth we have. Before manufacturing could be made the strength, the life force, the supporter of the service sector, we have a strong or bulging service sector. And that is the precocious servicification that is to be rectified. Manufacturing is low. And similarly, ecological overkill is also a structural transformation that has taken place in Kerala. All parties are responsible for that in a way. I have touched upon that here. Kerala is one state in the world which is shaped thanks to its environment. No region in the world is conditioned, the society and the economy to some extent are built on the environment of the state. The beauty of the state is our greatest gift of nature. But what is happening to the beauty of the state today? I have written so much on that, and my phrase was overkill, ecological overkill. Recently, 70 people died because of landslide. 41 west flowing rivers and 3 others. It's a rich endowment. What has happened to that? The beautiful backwaters. Where are we heading to? We have to build on that. Are the young people alive and seized of the problems that confront this small state? This small state is a great asset. The ecological contribution per hectare of Kerala is one of the highest in the world. A recent article in Nature, I have quoted that here. But where are we heading to now? I am not going into each one of them. I have many things to say. But I don't want to go on like that. But I may conclude the last sentence of what I have written 8 years ago as my first 8 or 9 years ago, my first KEA presidential address. Last sentence only I read. What we need is not smart corruption, but art education that is more imaginative, creative, and which stimulates rigorous critical thought. Is our education stimulating critical thought? Certainly not. I was in the education field. I can declare from top how and where the shoe pinches. I've written, sometimes I write in the Hindu, narrating these things. The fiscal crisis of the state. I'm not going into details of that. Thank you very much. We will have our business session and we will elect the new office bearers, but that is at the last. So let us go to the next. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Professor Oman, and your memory of how the organization started and how it has grown was very useful. And I'm sure your inspiring address, particularly raising your concerns in such a succinct manner, that indeed set the tone for the day. May I invite Professor T.M. Thomas Isaac to address the inaugural address.
Professor M.A. Oman, Professor K.J. Joseph, Professor Harilal, and dear colleagues and students. Today we are formally concluding the lecture series on Kerala economy in transition. The 17 lectures were delivered. The last one was nearly 1 year back.
And you inaugurated.
And therefore, this is only a formal conclusion. Going through the lectures, you find this a very excellent collection. A printed book would be one of the best dispositions about often Kerala's macroeconomic development experience. But I have a small suggestion. I mean, the sectoral studies, you're confined to primary, secondary, and health. I think an invited piece on education should be there. And the services trade, which I think Sushil Khanna's study would go in there. And possibly one by Iridarajan on migration. That would make it a really comprehensive analysis of Kerala's macro development experience. Now, listening to these lectures and going through the summary of many of them, I think there is a lot to be proud about the past. Of course, there are a lot of problems, but unlike the other states in India, we have been successful to provide a life with human dignity to our citizens. ensure the basic needs are met. Kerala gives a big message that at the present level of economic development, per capita income, it's possible to provide every Indian citizen with primary education, healthcare, housing, their basic needs. That is possible. You don't have to wait for the economic summit to be conquered before people can lead a decent life. I think that's a very, very important lesson. The lectures deal with not only these achievements, but the factors that have influenced generation of this demand for these basic needs from below and influence the policymakers, successive policymakers, starting from the Rajas of Travancore and Kochi. Now, as KP Kannan, Professor KP Kannan points out, and also many other lecturers have pointed out, there are certain downsides to this experience. That not only that we have ensured, say, welfare and social security, but this redistributed development strategy has also resulted in very rapid growth in GDP, primarily through migration and remittances. So at one level, you have a happy situation, rapid growth in the economy, and also a redistribution which ensures decent life to people. But what are the downsides? I think major problem has been pointed out, I think, by K.K. George, right in 1988-89, Limits to Kerala model, where he pointed out there is a fundamental contradiction, a paradox. We in Kerala aspire to have the standard of living of Nordic countries. That is officially the objective. But in Nordic countries, the tax GDP ratio is something like 35 to 45%. Kerala tax GDP ratio is 7 or 8%. And look at our aspiration, there is a contradiction. And that's the limit to growth, limit to Kerala development. Of course, he wrote at a time when everybody thought, not everybody thought, during a period of terrible stagnation of the 1970s and early 80s. So that also was contributing to low growth in revenues for the government. But that problem has continued. I intend to talk about that in a provocative, stylized manner. And I hope there would be a discussion on that, because this is now being discussed and debated all over Kerala. One thing is incontrovertible. I have no difference of opinion. The tax GDP ratio of Kerala, which in the early 70s, mid-70s, was something like 12% of GDP, has come down to less than 8%. Okay. Now, what is the problem with this? The state-led redistributive efforts which have ensured education, healthcare, and social security for the poor. Now, if the state is constrained financially, it cannot address the second generation problems. people's expectations for the services escalate, but government cannot keep pace with it. And that was the crisis of Kerala model that George was speaking about. Second, now you have a whole generation of new generation, highly educated, who do not want to do the traditional jobs of forefathers. But this economic growth has has bypassed our production sectors, whether it be agriculture or industry. As Professor M.A. once said, it's a service-led growth. And therefore, it doesn't produce quality jobs with the educated, unemployed aspects. Unemployment is something 2 times, 3 times the national average. So this is yet another problem. Though the mainstream is tremendous advance, there are still outliers in the society who are left out. They have to be brought up. It means government have to spend more. So there are these problems. I will not be going on to each of these issues. All that I want to say is that government finance is central to address these issues, these challenges, because we are accepting a model of development where government will continue to play a central role, developmental role. It's not a neoliberal approach. And therefore, this is an issue that we have got to address. So let me get to it. As I told you, please be devil's advocate and let's have an argument on this. Arguments are always clear up confusion. So there's a fact before us. There's a decline in the tax GDP ratio that has taken place. Now, this can be taken as an indicator or inefficiency of administration. That's what many scholars take it. And some people go to the extent of say, suppose our tax GDP ratio was still 12%, then we would have collected something more like 40,000 crores of rupees as tax, and there would have been no problem. The whole problem of overborrowing and so on and so forth is because you don't collect tax. Now, my position is an oversimplistic explanation. I will never deny that there is a lot of inefficiency in tax administration, that it needs to improve, and it can be improved. But there is no evidence whatsoever to argue that efficiency has gone down. There's no causal connection. There are two phenomena. Tax collection has gone down to GDP, but that needn't be because of inefficiency. I argue the nature of Kerala economy is such that the tax GDP ratio would not be maintained. If you want to maintain the tax GDP ratio, it is crucially connected to not only administrative efficiency, but the design of tax. Now, what is the nature of Kerala economy and what's the nature of taxes imposed in Kerala? Kerala can tax only on sale or supply. It cannot tax production. It cannot tax export import. It cannot tax income. Say sale tax. And in the federal system in India, you can only tax intra-state trade, not interstate trade. In interstate trade, it used to be the past, no, and even under that, central sale tax imposed by center, collected by states. So it used to be 4%. That's all. Now, when Kerala economy, because of remittances, it began to expand faster than national growth rate. It became more and more import intensive. I have a study for 1975 and 1980, 2 time points which showed that import intensity of Kerala economy was increasing. And Kerala was, say, about 70% of Kerala consumption goods were imported from outside. 70%. Of course, that includes the rice and so on. Okay. But all our consumer durables are imported from outside. Not consumer goods, not consumer durable. Bulk of them are imported. So, if the import takes place, that cannot be taxed at the border. It can be taxed only when it is sold within Kerala. Somebody says, I have brought it for my consumption, I am not for selling in Kerala, you cannot tax it. You are constructing a house, you buy things and bring. Kerala government cannot tax it. Maybe actually an intermediary is bringing all this and giving you in your name. It's not only that, office equipments, everything. So, given the nature of Kerala economy, when the economy expands as it has without internal say, linkage to internal production, import dependent development, your tax GDP ratio won't improve. It will come down here. Your denominator is expanding and your numerator, because this particular hemorrhage of say not ability to tax the imports, it will come down. This is my argument. But you have a period between 2006-07 and 2012-13 when average rate of growth of VAT in Kerala was 20%. 20% per annum. That would immediately would have led to improvement in tax GDP ratio, fiscal consolidation. In fact, the fiscal consolidation during this period was not through revenue, expenditure squeeze, but expansion of revenue. Why? How? The 2006-07, the government did one thing. It imposed entry tax on almost all goods. The previous government, the Nummanchatti was the finance minister, had passed entry tax legislation for few goods. But what was consciously done, it was almost expanded to almost all commodities coming through the checkposts. Checkposts were strengthened, and the result was taxes began to increase at 20%. If you want to bring your use or somebody's use, anything to the checkpost, you'll have to pay a tax. Okay. What happened in 13-14? Supreme Court struck down this law. Because when we passed the law, we had forgotten to take prior permission of the president. So it was struck down. And no new states, no new law entry tax law can be passed. So this is a problem. So what happened? anybody could bring commodities from one side and the guys for self-use and avoid tax. And immediately, the tax increase growth rate fell to 10%. Even I didn't understand what was happening. So I used to say, KEA money is inefficient and so on and so forth. I became finance minister. Still, I was stuck at 10%. That's when I began to look, yeah, what's happening? It's just simple. And that's the reason I, who opposed to VAT when it was introduced, because it abridges state government powers, supported GST. There was no way Kerala taxes could have increased more than 10% per annum unless we are able to get a tax on the imports. And GST provided that. In GST, to the input credit system, when we are importing, the final tax is collected by destination state. So even if the tax paid in a other state ultimately will reach the importing state, consuming state. So GST should have increased, got back Kerala to again to 20% growth path. And this is very important that taxes grow at this level for some time, because you are thinking of, say, meeting the challenges, second generation challenges in education, healthcare. You're thinking of increasing the social security coverage from, say, 125 rupees to 1,600 rupees or even more. You are now to build up a social security network for our aged, who are already 20% of the population. So it's very important that taxes grow. And also you are facing a very important challenge, because we have been spending more on social sectors. We have been underinvesting in the infrastructure. Our capital expenditure in the budget is around half what other states have been spending. About 50% of our fiscal deficit goes to meet the current expenditure. Now you can argue, I sometimes argue, that education expenditure is not a current expenditure, it's a human investment. And therefore should be counted as Kerala is not revenue deficit and so on. But the fact remains, physical infrastructure, you are not able to invest. There is a severe infrastructure deficit. Therefore, it's very important that taxes grow. So we went to GST. But even under GST, it has remained at 10%. But because of compensation, we got 14%. So we are not worse off than under VAT. It is better than VAT anyway. But now, just unless there's a tremendous increase in GST, you are going to have a tremendous fall in the revenues taking place. Because this 14% is cumulative. It's not 14% from the 14% from the not the last year's actual collection, from 14% increase of the last year, another 14%. So the fall once the compensation ends is going to be very severe. You see, yesterday somebody came and asked, "Look here, the minister says 21% growth in GST. So what is the problem? You are anyway out of compensation." 21% is to the previous year. But 14% growth when compared to the 5 years back, Every year 14% growth. So there will be still big gap. So why? What has happened? I don't know if it's true, but there has been a report that of the expenditure review committee that Kerala, because of inefficiency, has lost 5,000 crores of rupees a year. Therefore, total loss will be 25,000 crores. What is the argument? Which is true. I also hold that. This is the official position of Kerala government in the assembly also. There are two sources of revenue under GST for the state government. SGST, that is state component of the tax for intra-state transactions, SGST. Half goes to CGST, half to SGST. Two, interstate transactions, IGST. So there are two components, SGST, IGST. Suppose 60 to 70% of our consumption, tax goods consumption, comes from outside. What should be the proportion between SGST and IGST? My argument has been that IGST should be double of that of SGST. But IGST has only been, say, a little above SGST, 10% or something, that's all. So this is a big puzzle. So this can be of two reasons. Reason number one, while the goods are being brought into Kerala, they have to pay IGST, then IGST will be transferred to us. But suppose they don't carry e-way bill, suppose they don't pay IGST, there's a leakage. There are no more checkposts to catch traders who are trying to avoid taxes. GST is not a officer-led tax, but it's a self-policing system. Those who collect tax don't have to pay the entire tax, gross tax to the state, but only tax net of the tax they paid when they bought the goods. So to prove they paid the tax, they had to keep the bill. Then only they can claim the input credit. So if you are keeping the bill, you can trace it. There's no need to officer to go run around. That's the theory. But e-way bill, which will ensure that all transactions are tracked, came into effect only end of beginning of last year. There was no way to know if the truck coming in was carrying e-way bill. The government can do nothing. You're sitting duck. We had these cameras installed around, cameras which will capture the number plate, which will immediately go to the central information system. See if this vehicle has been issued an e-way bill. But getting in real time, it is not possible. You don't get access to that data. Therefore, you have the phenomena. States like Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Karnataka, which are consuming state, but also producing, manufacturing state, their revenues have done well. There's no interstate transaction very well. They send out, but they don't buy from other states. They manufacture there itself. Kerala is different. It's a consuming state, but it's dependent upon imports. This is something you can do. No government can do anything. Yes. So now the e-way bill has come. Even for gold, it is permitted to have e-way bill. Maybe GST now will catch up. Now, this may not be the only reason. It may be also because it is permissible under GST rules to claim from IGST input credit of SGST or CGST. So some of the traders must be claiming their SGST, CGST credit from IGST, then we will lose. See, these are things which you have to find out. I am very optimistic that you resolve this, your taxes would improve. And I was talking to her about this is the health. We'll have to think about how we can have greater resource mobilization. Once we have chosen a path of development which is led by activist state, it cannot be maintained without a higher resource mobilization. So that's anyway, that's there. So I am very optimistic. We cannot judge by last 2 years, 3 years, as many people are doing, because it is COVID period here. We cannot judge the future from those years. But it will take time. All right? It will take time. So in this intergnant period, it may take another 5 years, a few more years. But given the nature of GST tax system, our taxes should improve, and we should be able to get say greater capital gains tax through our registration system and stamp duty and so on. Because let people debate or service fees, etc. But accepting that your tax GDP ratio has to improve, then a key question comes. What do you do for capital investment during this period? When your taxes have improved, your revenue deficit goes down, then more and more money from the borrowed by the government can be put into capital expenditure, infrastructure deficit can be overcome. Maybe 20 years. Because you cannot borrow more than 3% of the GDP. Can we afford to wait for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years to overcome our infrastructural deficit? This is the question. I am one who thinks, no, you can't afford. Things are moving so fast in Indian economy. You have deliberately chosen a path of development where you're not going to appease all the corporates around and so on. You're following certain different policies. You better get your act together and the infrastructure ready. How do you do it? State government cannot borrow more. What can a state government do? There are two ways of financing infrastructure. One, government borrows and pays the contractor. Two, contractor borrows and builds and government pays him over a period of years, say within 10-year, 20-year period. The second model is called annuity model. Trivandrum, say, city road improvement program is some 1,000 crores rupees something. Actually, the expenditure required estimate is only 250 or 300 crores rupees at that time. But Kerala government tendered is saying we will pay the money only in 20 years period. So the contractor factors in the interest that has to be paid and quotes and quoted and he's building. There's two ways. Government borrow and two, government enters into annuity program. Annuity program All governments are doing. But annuity program has a problem. See, the contractors who can borrow money for 20-year period and invest and wait are only few. Therefore, when you tender it, competition is low, and therefore, when finance department analyzed the data, we found that implicit rate of interest is something like 20% for Trivandrum City Road Improvement Program, 20% here. As future pays, you can be responsible. You tender it, the future pays. But it's height of responsibility. Therefore, can we modify this annuity program? Let's have an institution, a parastatal institution, KIFB, to which government says, we'll give you an annuity of half the motor vehicles tax every year. This is the annuity. So they have an assured future flow of income. They can securitize their future flow of income, borrow and build. This is the model. It's extra budgetary borrowing, but government doesn't borrow. It's only a modification of a practice that is universally prevalent in India, even in Kerala. Nobody believed it can be done. Because nobody believed an institution that efficient to mobilize 50, 60,000 crores of money and then implement it. Keep track of it. Government, is so inefficient and so on. All government large projects, how cost overrun is. There's no irrigation project which has not celebrated its golden jubilee before concluding. So this is, so nobody believed it could be done. But Kerala created the institution, supra-efficient, and it is to prove its efficiency, we went to borrow masala bond. Today I regret it. There's no need for that. It's 2,000 crores of rupees. Yeah, you're borrowing from the market in India. Already borrowed 20,000 crores of rupees, but it is 2,000 crores. Why did we do that? Just to send a message to the money market. Here is a player in the market which is sufficient. We can meet all the norms of a bond in the international market. Just to give the message. Because that is the credibility of the financial institution is very important. We thought that this will give a lot of credibility. So now it is done. Now the fight is ideological. The central government doesn't want the state government. Why should a government do all this here? It should be left to the corporates. That's the model. Why should state government do it? And that too successfully. And therefore, now something is discovered. That is to say, the payment ultimately would go from the state government. Not everything. 25% of the projects are revenue earning. Like industrial estate, you send the money, but when the land is sold, KIFB gets back the money. But ultimately, money goes to the government. Therefore, the indirect borrowing of the government, there should be included in government borrowing. Now, once it is included in the entire model breaks down. Your normal borrowing is cut down. You're facing financial problem because your expenditure on capital is committed. But the same central government borrows extra budgetary borrowing, according to AG, more than 3 lakh crores of rupees every year. Every year. It's not overall balance. 3 lakh crores of rupees. That's not counted as Government of India's borrowing. This is a basic asymmetry when it comes to center and state. Central government can borrow, but it's not part of the borrowing. They keep it out. But state should do. See, if you take FRBM Act, has the central government at any time in history, in the last 20 years, complied with it? Average fiscal deficits of central government will be something like 4%. State government would be 3%. Over COVID, it's 2.75. All the states do not borrow 3%. They don't want. I don't know why they don't want. They don't want that. Many states who don't borrow. Many states borrow and then do not spend because they're afraid. You spend borrowed money on various things, current expenditure, revenue deficit will go up. Can you imagine in COVID times when people are hungry without health care and so on, dying on the streets? The state governments in India, other than Kerala, had 1.5 lakh crores of money lying in the treasury as surplus unspent. Yeah. How do you know this? If you have surplus in the treasury next day, Reserve Bank will take that money and deposit in Government of India bonds. And everybody is happy with that. If the money lies in the treasury, it does not gain any interest. It goes into Government of India bond, it gets say 3%, 4% interest. So we have statistics. What is the state government money, India government bonds, and at the height of COVID, 1.5 lakh crores. I'm not going to find fault with them. That's the problem of policy of those state governments. There are state governments who do not want to spend on education, etc., borrowed money. They wouldn't understand. All right, they don't spend. Who do not want to use the full quota of the fiscal deficit borrow, allow permissible borrowing. Here is a state in Kerala saying, not that they are going to permanently overborrow, but an interim period till the fiscal consolidation take place. We want to catch up our infrastructure deficit. We will take a mechanism of annuity payment program through KIFBI. That minimum fiscal autonomy should be provided in the federation here. Because regions are differentiated by not only shared history, culture, but also development process. Development aspirations of people in the regions are very different. Kerala, well, everybody fond of us, you spend so much on educational care. Yes, we did it. That was our choice. That was the choice on which so many mass movements, etc., struggled in Kerala. And today we make a conscious choice again. Yeah, we want to catch up for an interim period. We have got a revenue system tax, which we know we are planning. We are going to increase it, and there is potential to increase it. So interim period, we want to catch up. We are using this. And in the process, our growth takes place, accelerates. And when growth accelerates, see, even if you add a KIFBI money into it, it's sustainable. Economics, you learn about Domar. What does Domar equation tell? As long as your rate of growth of the GDP is higher than the rate of interest, the debt is sustainable. Kerala in the last, from 87 to pre-COVID period, has been growing at a nominal rate of 12%. Your rate of interest has been 8-9%. It's perfectly sustainable. This is a conscious development strategy that is adopted. That's why I consider big disservice the whole debt trap of Kerala, this, that, all this paranoia being brought about. It's only creating an atmosphere for the central intervention against Kerala's development. Because they have a framework of development, neoliberal, and Kerala has consciously adopted to the extent possible. We are not an independent country, but to the extent possible, will preserve our public education, will preserve our public health system, we will increase our social security system, we will have decentralized development, we will protect our public sector, and yet nevertheless we will catch up our infrastructure so that the economy makes a transition to knowledge economy, transform higher education also. Kerala's development moved to a higher level of, higher plane of growth. The conscious strategy is being undermined. So instead of the entire country and people protesting against it, we have a spectacle in Kerala where the media, a lot of people say this whole, we are going Sri Lanka way, we are thoroughly debt trap, this, that, destroying the popular will to resist. This inroad into this autonomy of the state. So this is I am not going into the rest of the thing. I've just taken one point only, which I think is central to one, meeting the decentralized, meeting the second generation problems for which we have a decentralized strategy. How do you improve education? How do you improve your healthcare? How do you take care of your old? Not through privatization, but through participation. To ensure participation, you have decentralization. How do you have your infrastructure? Well, you will borrow and invest. How do you have your industry? Well, corporate investment hopefully will come. Suppose they don't, we should have educated startups to move in. This is the vision, the Kerala directives of future. I'm not going to explain all this, but this is very crucial. The battle where it is being bought for today. Unfortunately, Kerala is not fighting back. Because some of my friends, close friends and so on, not understanding larger picture of what is happening, has been going around saying that Kerala finances is in trouble. Yes, it's under pressure and so on, but take the larger picture. I think it is very, very important. That's why I started lecture series in every college that invites me. I go and give 3 lectures a day on the same day. I went to 2-3 colleges, but I am under pressure otherwise. So then I lost momentum. But it's very, very important. Let's take up. So I've been very provocative, very consciously done so. I have stopped in slight non-academic language, but I hope I will have provoked some of you to answer. Talk back to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I think you could not have exposed the realities of many of the myths that we are having in Kerala and the state of Kerala. And first of all, I assure you that we will restart that lecture series that we have already started. And I was actually, the big gap between the practice and the preaching by the center. And in fact, in this country like ours, in fact, I was wondering, instead of going for or continuing with the most nonsensical piece of legislation, which I would call the FRBM, instead, we could have been making the case for an act that monitors the utilization of the debt instead of setting the limit for borrowing. Thank you very much. I think we will continue after a brief tea break. We'll have a tea break. It's already 11:30, so we'll have otherwise the people will ask. The tea will go cold, and we'll have a tea break and we'll resume for 10 minutes maximum, please. The tea is arranged outside. Over to you, Professor Hedla.
Professor M.A. Umman, Professor T.M. Thomas Isaac, Professor K.J. Joseph, Professor Hari Kumar, and friends. I promise that I'll be very brief. I'll add one more provoking questions to the list of questions presented by Professor Isaac. And for that, I will not take more than 10 minutes because we are all very keen to listen to you people, because this is culmination of a series of presentation on Kerala economy in transition. I made my presentation as part of that series. And today, we had two provoking presentations. Professor Umman was brief, but he was also very keen to provoke the new gen. And then very unusually provoking presentation by Professor Thomas Isaac.
Yes.
And he made it very clear in the introduction itself. I wanted to provoke you people. And after listening to his presentation, we know that there are reasons why he thought he should be very provoking. And he also towards the end told that he is now visiting colleges and making some of these presentations in colleges. And I think that should be continued. Of course, he's having a busy schedule. And in spite of that busy schedule, I wish that he gets time to visit colleges and present these views. My only suggestion is this. I have this doubt whether our state discourse on economic development, whether it is not becoming too Kerala-centric and state government-centric. Because you listen to the media debates, debates in the printed media also, it's as if everything centers around Kerala and Kerala government. For example, now the world is getting restructured. The whole world system is getting restructured. There is a war going on, economic catastrophe taking place, global crisis taking place, global movement of capital in desire, global movement of labor taking place. And all these are having implications for India, implications for people in Kerala. At the national level also, we have major developments taking place, like earthquakes. That kind of developments are taking place. Take the case of Adani. What is happening to the national economy? Our stock market is in a very bad shape. Retail investors suffered a lot. Our national financial institutions are really suffering, including LIC, where we have all kept our money. That's true of public sector banks. But our media is completely indifferent to these developments, global developments, national developments. Let me also speak about EPFO. In fact, no, if we leave alone government employees, national and state level, almost all workers in India, they subscribe to EPFO. Those who work in the media, those who work in the Navaratna companies, SAIL, GAIL, all these institutions. See, they get, people retired from SAIL and GAIL get pension. Those who retired at the level of top management, managers and engineers, they get 2,500 rupees, 1,800 rupees as pension. In spite of the Supreme Court intervention. In fact, no, there were a series of High Court verdicts against this position of EPFO. Kerala High Court and many other High Courts gave verdicts. And EPFO approached Supreme Court. Supreme Court also gave a judgment at 2-3 stages. And they have ordered that the offer of a higher pension should be respected and EPFO should implement that. And the last date is reaching. But Government of India and the EPFO is not responding. This is affecting the entire working class of India. And in terms of pension, if you compare, there are studies which say that India's ranking is one of the lowest among countries in the world. But our media is not discussing this. So the entire discussion is focused on Kerala and state government centric. This is something very serious. And we are also, in a way, getting into that trap quite a lot. That's what I feel. Because as economists, as political economy people, we know that even nation-state centric approach to development is problematic. Why? We know that nation states are not as powerful as they used to. Particularly in the global south, the nation states are not having the powers to decide the destiny of their nations. Because of restrictions on finance, because of restrictions on this border measures and various kinds of policies that governments can take. We know that national borders have become highly porous. The governments cannot have any restrictions on import and export, movement of capital, movement of labor. That's about border measures. Then what about internal policy? There is considerable amount of harmonization taking place. There is privatization of governance taking place in a big way. And because of this, economists say that now onwards, we cannot have a discussion on development which is nation state centric. You will have to place the discussions in the world system context, in the global system context. Otherwise, you will not be doing justice to your positions. Take the case of natural rubber in Kerala. Natural rubber was doing so well. Our productivity is one of the best in the world. We were doing so well under a different regime. The regime changed. And 4 or 5 districts in Kerala is in a very, very bad shape. And I have some rubber, 1 or 2 acres. There is hardly anything which I get from there, but I sort of pay the tappers' wages. I am a very insignificant owner of rubber land. But about 30% of the Kerala economy. In fact, rubber was the engine of growth of Kerala. And rubber area used to really had a lot of influence on Kerala's life, cultural life, politics and all. The entire region is in a kind of decay now. We know that these are not because of domestic reasons. These are not because of lack of enthusiasm of our planters or growers. Certain things have happened. The India-ASEAN agreement, WTO agreement, which sort of overdetermined the fate of the rubber cultivation. But we don't discuss this. And we know that rubber planters in Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, they are also suffering the same way as Kerala farmers. Governments there, they are trying to subsidize and help the rubber growers there. And using that subsidy, I can tell you with conviction, and Joseph will also agree with it because we have written some pieces together on this. See, they are trying to export those subsidized rubber into the Indian market, and from India, we are trying to dump our rubber in the international market. In fact, there is a very unhealthy competition among rubber growers. But we are not addressing this issue. We are not we are not communicating to the growers in other countries. We are competitively subsidizing our growers. I tell you, whatever money Dr. Isaac has been giving to the rubber growers, it was as good as adding some kayam in the നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിലെ saying ഉണ്ട് കടലിൽ കായം കലക്കുന്ന പോലെ ഒരു മീനിങ്ങും ഇല്ലാത്ത കാര്യമാണ്. You can give some interim help to this planters, but what is the use? Because even that subsidy is being used by the tire manufacturers, not only here, everywhere. 6 or 7 or a dozen tire manufacturers are controlling the whole scene, enjoying all government subsidies given here and there, and overtime work, etc., that the planters are giving. So the point is, there are certain things which are shaping our destiny, shaping the future of our citizens here. We need to bring in those things. We cannot be anymore debating in the state-centric or government-centric way. And this becomes very obvious in the context of the presentation made by Dr. Isaac here. See, state government, which was there in Kerala, say 15 years ago, and there is no comparison between the state government now and the state government we used to have, say, 15 years ago. The FRBM Act brought in major changes. Like if you want to decide on the future of Keralites, if you want to decide on the economic future of Keralites, we should have control over this economy. Can we control exports? Can we control trade? No, that is out of question. But taxes also. Taxes need not be for revenue mobilization. Suppose the state government and state finance minister wants to support a certain kind of industry because of externalities, environmental externalities, positive externalities. Can the state government do anything about it to help certain sections of economy? So you cannot intervene in the economy to help certain people or even penalize certain people. It's very difficult. What kind of state power is there for the state government? Now, this is becoming a very serious problem. So we need to discuss this particular aspect also. So this is the sort of point which I thought I'll add to what Dr. Isaac listed here. I'll conclude by making another important related statement. See, the Kerala model of development which we speak about came about not only with the help of a state government or the kind of power we have started enjoying after independence in the form of state government and state government's power. Even without that, even under colonial government, we were trying our level best to make a society of our own. Srinarayana Guru and all these great leaders of Kerala, they were trying to make a society which is more equal, which is more democratic, and they were fighting against landlordism, caste, all those things, even without the luxury of having state government power. That means the reduced power of the state government need not be a debilitating factor, need not dishearten us, because even under colonialism, when we didn't have any power, we were going ahead by establishing schools, by making social changes. So that's our history. So if we believe in collective action, we can go ahead with collective action in all these areas if state government is there, state government powers are useful, we can use that. But even if the state government is powerless, even if there is a drainage of power of the state government, no, we will have to continue with collective action. We should not lose heart. The legacy of collective action should be taken ahead. There are major challenges. One, of course, to protect the state government, the power of the state government, the power of the state government to tax, the power of the state government to borrow, the power of the state government to have separate vehicles, independent vehicles like KEA, which we used to have, which the center is enjoying. All those powers will have to be restored. That's very important for democracy to go ahead. Otherwise, it will be one-sided. So we should get back all that powers. You should empower the state government more, and we should also be putting pressure on the central government to do justice to Kerala. In addition to that, we should also have this idea that even if things are becoming hostile, we will have other ways to protect the legacy of collective action, the legacy of Kerala model of development. With that, I'll close. I think we have quite a lot to discuss. Some of you might have listened to the earlier lectures and two presentations by Professor Umman and Dr. Isaac. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Harilal, for your, such a succinct but powerful intervention, reiterating the fact that nothing is endogenous. The exogenous factors, particularly with respect to Kerala, are very important, which in fact reinforced what Professor Isaac stated earlier. Now, I think there is what is called an address by the outgoing president, Professor K.J. Joseph. I'm not in a kind of, it's already getting 1 o'clock. And what is the time like? 12:15. Yeah. If you permit me 10 minutes, I'll talk. I think otherwise, right. And then, yeah, I'm actually not, I have not prepared a presidential address. I was thinking that I will rather say out of thanks on behalf of the outgoing executive committee and say very briefly about what we have been trying to do. And the sum and substance of the message that I was trying to convey was something like this. As far as Kerala is concerned, as we already heard, we have a lot to take pride in. But at the same time, there won't be any difference in the statement that the glass is only half full. For reasons which we are probably some of them we are aware of, some of them we are not really yet to our understanding, maybe really remaining rudimentary. For factors, the Kerala is yet to reap its potential. And Professor Isaac and Professor Harilal and of course Professor Umman, they have thrown significant insight into why, where we are, why, what we are. But as an economic association of the state, as we have actually we have a greater responsibility to reflect upon these issues which are said and add to it, because knowledge is never complete. And I would like to kind of reflect upon the possible role that we as economic association could play in the state, which I would like to take a step forward from or further articulate the future vision that Professor Isaac has articulated in the last budget before last, and Professor Ken Harilal Balagopal has taken that agenda forward with significant increase in his allocation and commitment to various sectors related to knowledge economy. Having experimented with the decentralized development by way of invigorating the productive sectors of the economy, in fact, wherein Professor Isaac was very much drawing insight from or inspired by the limits to growth that Professor George, he quoted himself. And as we stand today, when we are talking about an economy, the way in which the economy has transformed all over, the relative role of conventional factors of production has significantly changed. The world that we are living in today, it is not land, it is not labor, it is not capital, but the knowledge is the key resource of the modern economy. And if we believe that if knowledge is the key resource, and that knowledge comes out of a process which we call as learning. And that learning is a kind of interactive process. And that interaction can be, I would say, within your classroom. I would say within your university or the colleges. That can be within the socio-economic context wherein your institution operates, that I would say the interaction between the college and the university with the society around, the economy around. And this kind of interaction, in fact, as we go by Douglas North, is governed by the institutional context in which the interaction takes place. I mean institution, I mean essentially the rules, the laws, the tradition, the practices that govern the interaction. That is what Professor Umman was asking about. How critical are we in our teaching? What kind of an institutional architecture that you create within your class such that the students are asked to ask questions instead of going with the textbook that we have by heart it, given to them, they by heart it, they're producing the question answers. And are we really kind of creating a learning environment? Or to put it very precisely, each and every student that comes to our classroom is actually coming with an economic textbook of her life, her neighborhood, her society. And to what extent what we teach are really connected with, integrated with the textbook that they are bringing into the classroom, or rather we are actually forcing a textbook to her head which has no relation to which she can understand. So what I'm trying to say is that the kind of the way in which we are, when we are talking about Kerala, today we are talking about a knowledge economy, that knowledge can be taught in terms of what is called the scientific knowledge. And you, me, we are all in the prime business of producing that scientific knowledge. That is documented, etc. But at the same time, there's quite a lot of knowledge that we are talking about is synthetic knowledge, that is experience-based knowledge. And how we harness these into the economy and society to further the progress of the society and address the problematic. In fact, today morning we were talking, saying that, okay, some of you are with 4 or 5 faculty and you have to teach all the papers. Why do you need all of you teach all the subjects today? You can, in development economics, in fact, we can think it as 3 or 4 universities working together, and chapters can be divided. That world is that you have to be innovative in that sense of the term, because government may not be able to appoint so many teachers. But now these are also all kind of, what I'm trying to say is that when you are talking about interaction, it is easily said, but rarely done, because there is no systemic interactive space that you see. We Malayalis are essentially individually intelligent, collectively almost foolish. It is easy that each individual is, but if one is doing something, it's fine. With 2, it's problem. With 3, chaos. Is it so? I don't know what. Now the question is, we have to think yourself, how these kind of things, we as associations, as in your individual capacity, we have to think about it. And in fact, we have to I would say that there is an immense opportunity at this juncture for Kerala Economic Association to effectively intervene. The point that Professor Isaac said, the manner in which the center-state relations are shaping, or it is adversely affecting the state's development, and what are the kind of alternative that the youth generation put forward. In fact, I would say that, okay, instead of the so-called FRBM, ideally we should be thinking in terms of an effective act that monitors the utilization of the debt, because Professor Isaac himself, along with the Govind Rao in last meeting here, they, Professor Isaac argued that it is not the quantity of debt that matters. It is the quality of the debt, or how, on what purpose you make use of it. But there's no system to monitor that. So what I'm trying to say that there are a number of questions that we at the current juncture, that Kerala Economic Association and economic teachers, and you only can provide appropriate answers to that. And I must say that I don't think that, okay, the last economic we have been able to do anything terribly great in this direction. But only thing is that I understood that there is immense opportunity for us. Are we really making use of it? I mean, we were trying to, I must say that, okay, last executive committee was trying to think in terms of essentially harnessing the capabilities and commitment of as many people as possible instead of confining to a 15-member executive committee. In that direction, we thought in terms of dividing Kerala Economic Association to 3 different chapters, so that, there are quite many people all across the state, who could positively contribute to our activities. And it's, in that sense, there's a kind of competition could be built in terms of, So essentially that, again, I mean here that your space of interaction get widened, that's. So there are many things which we tried. Some of them we were successful, some of them we were not. And I must take this occasion to thank all my, of course, Professor Hari Kumar and Shija were exceedingly helpful as Vice President and Joint Secretary, and Santosh and Priyesh, they were also very helpful. And all the executive committee members, wherever, in fact, they all came once or twice here for the meeting. And others, in fact, we were overwhelmed by the wonderful participation in the online seminar series, because our period also coincided with the once-in-a-century pandemic that limited in terms of, and thanks to Professor Isaac's intervention, we immediately built up the infrastructure facilities needed for going online, etc., etc. And we were very often overwhelmed by, in fact, Professor Ole Tonquist. Yesterday night, I was also Patrick Heller. They all came and delivered lectures. And Patrick Heller was a regular participant. He wanted the recording of it. So I take this occasion to, first of all, on behalf of of course, I thank the executive committee members for all your support. And I also, on behalf of the executive committee members, I thank all those who have encouraged us during our slightly extended or rather dragged tenure. We should not have. I said that I almost lost half of my face since we couldn't do it on time. So we take this occasion to thank all of you, and we assure you that even if we are not on board, our moral support will be for the new people. And we wish all the best for the new office bearers who are going to be elected. And with these words, we will get back to this. I think it should not have, now I think that I should not have spoken now. I think we could have taken later. So I think the floor is now open for the feedback from the commentators. And we have 1.5 hours we have. So I will appreciate you could be brief within 5 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes would be ideal. The best will be 2.5 minutes. Okay, Professor Anita.
Okay. So, most respected, distinguished professors, and my commentators, distinguished delegates. So this is a thought for correcting or reducing the imbalances in the healthcare sector of Kerala. And we know that around 1.1% of gross state domestic product is allocated for the healthcare sector. And if we compare the neighboring states, we know that the per capita health expenditure is very high. And even if we compare it with the all India average, it is 4 times more than that of the all India average. But at the same time, we are facing a serious high cost of treatment, and the out-of-pocket expenditure of Kerala is very high, and we are coming in the highest level compared to other states. So there is a huge imbalances in the healthcare expenditure and the actual situation, and how we can reduce that imbalance. Maybe we can, there is a direct solution. We need to reduce the morbidity level of the state of Kerala, or either we can also control the cost of illness of the state. So coming to the morbidity state, when we go through the WHO report, we can see that one of the major causes of high morbidity is due to the unsafe food habits or the contaminated food. And they have identified around 200 diseases, that is ranging from diarrhea to cancer. And almost around 600 million people are yearly affecting due to this contaminated or unsafe food. And around 420,000 deaths are due to this type of diseases. And this type of unsafe food is coming maybe due to the contamination, due to unwanted bacteria, unwanted chemicals, and other pollutions. So the point here is that when we coming to the Indian context, we know that we don't have a safe database, but still there are projections. Now at present, the sufferings are 1 out of 12 are suffering due to this type of disease. And we are projected to 2030, it may go up to 1 out of 9. And in the context of Kerala, again, there is no specific database, but based on, while we linking the identified diseases at the WHO report and the non-communicable diseases in the Kerala context, we can see that there are a huge percentage of non-communicable diseases may be due to this type of contamination or the bad unsafe food habits. And again, the recent reports, the newspaper reports and the deaths reported cases are also clear evidence of that. There is unsafe food practices are happening in the Kerala economy also. So, so if we control that side, that means we can reduce, by controlling the unsafe food practices, we can control the morbidity pattern of the Kerala to some extent. So coming to the prospects theory, why this type of contamination is occurring? It is not a particular point pollution or not a particular point source. There is a food chain happening from the cultivators to the producers, and there are no enormous transformation happening throughout the journey. And in even the final stages of consumption also, this type of contamination happening. Some of the contaminations are deliberately happening, or it is knowingly, or it is deliberately created, but some others are not knowingly happening. So based on the prospects theory, actually it is an irrational thinking. Why this type of irrational thinking is occurring? It is due to a number of reasons. There are no common reasons based on that one. Again, if you go through the side of the cultivators to the producers or the transformation or the different stages, we can feel, or we can see the same tendency in the Kerala context also. See, for example, in the context of the cardamom cultivators, why they are using the banned pesticides or the fertilizers, they have different reasons. Again, in the case of paddy cultivators, they are also using, we have banned a number of chemicals in the 2011 and 2012 also, but still we are using some of the elements. So why that is happening? There are different reasons. So the reasons, the total reasons are, or the factors influencing to contaminate the food is varying from person to person or different sources. So we need to, the point here is that again, the prospects theory also gives solutions for that one also. There are, people are always thinking about the immediate gain, and they are not thinking about the long run losses. So again, there are solutions for also. So I think sir also mentioned about, we most of the time we do not consider about the positive externalities. And if you think about the positive externalities or incentives, or why why this happening in Kerala, and we need to curtail, or we need to implement strict policies in different points, then we can reduce this type of contamination or practices to a great extent, and we may reduce the morbidity pattern also. And one more, if the time permits, one more thing is that sir also mentioned about the critical education or critical knowledge we have to be created in the economy. See, compared to the people, or the knowledge level or the attitude level of the Kerala people compared to other states are very high. But we know the bad practices and we know the best practices. But a few studies conducted in the local level, we experienced that in the context of conservation aspects or pollution controlling methods, the knowledge and attitude level, when we transforming that knowledge and attitude level to the conservation practices, the conservation level is very low compared to other factors. And that is also supported by different reasons. So that means maybe I think we can link that smart classes or smart education we needed to practice, to convert the knowledge or the attitude to the real practice is very important in the Kerala context also. So the solution is we need concerted effort from the different stakeholders, maybe cultivators, producers, business groups, individual students, and ultimately the governments, so that we may reduce this issue, and the impact not only to the health sector, maybe its impact is very high positive external to the other sectors also. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very enlightening talk. On one critical point, that is high life expectancy and high morbidity go hand in hand in Kerala. This is one of the demographic transition tragedy that encounter Kerala. One point is now said. The next, I will be controlling now.
Next is Dr. Abdul Jabbar.
Respected dignitaries, dear teachers. Sir, here my concern is that how far it is sustainable our development activities of the KIFB and borrowing already mentioned by our Isaac sir. Maintenance of fiscal discipline by state is of predominant importance, not only from the point of view of macroeconomic stability, but also to ensure adequate funding of essential social and economic activities. For this, our state of Kerala is using deficit financing as a counter-cyclical measures. How far it is sustainable? That is my question. And second one, why our state is more strict on that revenue mobilization through taxation, and why don't we have choose this like some extra other measures like tourism during this downswing of Kerala economy? These are the two concerns I have.
Thank you so much, respected chair and other dignitaries. I'm so okay, sir. Yes, yes. Dr. Thomas Isaac sir highlighted many critical and very valid point here. The tax GDP ratio, the historical perspective, and where we are standing, and what will be the ratio for the SGST and CGST, and also mentioned that there are tax inefficiency argument about the Kerala's tax inefficiency and tax mobilization, and we are not able to trace the inability. There is no mechanism. But I think the 15th Finance Commission horizontal devolution, there is a 2.5 weightage given for the tax efficiency. I think Government of India has some effort criteria and some methodology for measuring the inefficiency also. Then regarding the infrastructure, as we know that infrastructure, the another major argument in the existing government is the capital spending is very low and the revenue spending is more than 90%. So the immediate need of the capital expenditure nowadays. And my question, and also we are extra budgetary effort is taking for the capital expenditure enhance. So my concern is what should be the ideal ratio? Now we are 90-20 of the, so what should be the ideal ratio for this, at least the short term? The 85, as we know that the government of India is also the 83% of the capital revenue. This is the global, this is the all India phenomenon. Now, what should be the Kerala's ratio for that? Then the Kerala's ratio for the capital and the revenue expenditure. The ideal, as we know that we are following the policy ideology. It's typically against the government of what government of India is following. So I'm not going to the detail. So what would be the ratio, ideal ratio for keeping that? Then the another issues that yeah, we are having the ratio 90-20, 19-10. So another concern is the government of India is following typical policy adoption. That means the market centric, and they are firmly believe in the trickle down effect of the expansion of the market through the incentivizing of the corporates, and also it will create the employment opportunity and they expand the markets. And what actually happening is the corporates consciously keeping the reserve army for declining the bargaining power of the labor force to reduce their wage, through which disposable income to the market will be low and the market expansion will not be happening. That is the reality. And also at the same time, state government following another alternative policy, the state-centric and expansion of the disposable income to the market. That is why the existing government is focusing the social spending, the social welfare programs for immediately come to the money to the market. So these are the two major policies we are facing. My question is on the basis of the government of India's policy, many institutional framework is happening through the tide fund, the borrowing limitations and borrowing, conditional borrowing, and even the SDGs tying with the schemes. And there are many institutional framework happening in the state level governance. Recently, the PIM department is following, and the government of India directly contacted the PIM department, and the district development commissioners are appointed, and they are directly reported to the government of India. So one separated channel is opening in the state government for monitoring all the government of India's poultry. So my concern is how can we balance in the future? So we have to follow our own policy effort, policy initiative, policy stand, and also government of India is compelling state government for following their own policy. So how can we? So another concern is the KIFBI, and as we know that we have very radical change in the infrastructure KIFBI. So currently there are so many policy initiatives, some institutions functioning as a
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, Professor Olay, welcome.
Online.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. I know you're right. Yeah. Yeah, may I have Bennett? Yeah.
What our friend is trying to indicate is the ideological cleavage that is emerging. One is that a state-centric approach of Kerala versus the market-centric approach of Kerala. This is an issue that Harlal has raised.
And I suppose
it is tremendous implication, and I can go. I have recently made a deep study of that.
Now let us listen to Bennett. Bennett.
Distinguished
Thomas, yeah.
and other dignitaries. First of all, I'd like to thank KEA for inviting. So I would like to add one more comments on Kerala agriculture, its recent trends and future opportunities. So the major challenges are the Kerala population depending on agriculture as a major source of income is only around 27% compared to the 61% of the national average of rural India. So it has become an unattractive activity to engage. As Halal sir mentioned that this cash crops, which is our backbone, this pricing is dependent on global fluctuations, which is out of our control. Most important challenge facing is the unavailability of agricultural laborers due to the shift of non-agricultural workers to allied sectors. Kerala also faces the problem of yield gap. So as a result of these factors, so we could see a decrease. There's an increase in the barren land from around 1% of total area in 1970s to around 4% in 2016. So the major reasons attributed to this include mainly due to the reduction in the paddy cultivation from 8 lakh hectare in 1970s to 2 lakh hectares. Now, several agriculture industries are experiencing a significant awakening. Kerala has been able to secure a contemporary, scientific and sustainable agricultural future by reviving several decades of industries. Different government plans like Subiksha Kerala, Farmer Welfare Board, Coconut Development Council, and government has also taken important steps to implement the Justice Krishnan Nair Commission in 2018, like abolishing the plantation tax, exempting layers from the LSG taxes, including layers in the Life Mission, establishment of plantation directorate are major steps. The future prospects of agriculture includes a proper land use policy, which includes a classification of land into agriculture, restricted tourism, and for industrial purposes. Improving the soil health is an important aspect. Each farmer must be provided with separate soil health card, and agriculture department must be able to advise the farmers regarding the crop patterns, nutrients for the soil, etc. And each river, Kerala is blessed with a lot of rivers, and each river must be have a separate policies, river basin policies. And we must strengthen and improve the innovative and innovate local tools, develop more drought and pest resistant crop varieties, and adapt drip irrigation. And we must study from Israel. Actually, the government has taken a commendable step by sending these farmers to the Israel, but unfortunately, it's the news for the wrong reasons. So providing subsidies for replanting the tea estates. Actually, our tea plantations is around 60 years old, and we are facing some issues there. So the government must be providing subsidies to it. Government must explore plans regarding inland fisheries. Kerala has a huge potential for developing aquarium, fish, corals, etc. So as one concern I should raise is about the buffer zone issue, where I am coming from. The farmer population inhabiting in the Western Ghats are facing tremendous threats from the wild animals as well as these policies. The government must address the concern immediately. So this is all. Thank you.
Very comprehensive paper that is.
Yeah.
Next name.
Yeah, Dr. Baiju Matthew, University of Calcutta. Yeah.
Respected Chair and my dear friends, when we reflect on the Kerala economy directives for the future, and having listened to many of the sessions that we all attended, I have a couple of things. Number one is a humble introspection and a little bit thoughts on the political economy aspect of Kerala's economic development experience. And then little thing on the real sector crisis. I think on introspecting, we should think that many of the things that we have been talking about 30 years ago, especially in my discussions with Dr. KK George, Professor Thomas Isaac was mentioning about his contribution on the limits of Kerala model. And I believe that we are still discussing about those limits and constraints and trying to, move out of it. So what we have been discussing 30 years ago is still the subject of discussion and consideration now. And we would like, I think that moving forward, we should give more importance to solving those issues that have already been talked about. And that is one of my first thoughts for introspection in this kind of discussion. A second thing, of late, I think that the Kerala political economy scenario, number one, the rule of law aspect, keeping, having some control, civic control and civic discipline in the society, which are most essential for development moving forward. Talking about fiscal constraints, tax GDP ratio, I believe that the discipline in the political economy side the civic side can contribute a lot to our development experience. We have, anybody in the state can open a shop anywhere. In fact, some years ago, I read in The Economist that the whole Kerala is a supermarket. Anywhere, anybody can open a supermarket. What is the implication of those kind of economic behavior? The organized sector, the retail sector gets disturbed. Their sales go down. They invest into all the infrastructure. They pay the taxes, but their demand is under stress. So I think that we need to move from a soft state to a more disciplined state in terms of these matters.
Extremely important point. See, use the little time we have to reflect on things. He raised a question of rule of law.
Yes.
You think of that.
And we have to come to the roads, this traffic management. So,
Somebody, issue of road management. That is കുഴി ഒരു വലിയ പ്രശ്നമായിട്ട് തീരുകയാണ്. അപ്പൊ നമ്മുടെ റേഷ്യോസും മാനേജ്മെന്റും ഒക്കെ എവിടെ കിടക്കും?
and we don't have the police force. Sir.
അടുത്ത ആൾ.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Excellent
Dr.
point.
Emmanuel Thomas from St. Thomas College.
Thank you for this lecture series and this opportunity also. Earlier, I had got an opportunity to
Louder.
earlier I had got an opportunity to be part of one of the panels here in this series, and I got to listen to many presentations, lectures also. So I would like to raise a few questions, in fact, based on the what expired in this lecture series. So it is in fact interesting that one of the most important theme which emerged out of this lecture series was questions on the sustainability of Kerala model. I think so. And by 1980s itself, Kerala had reached certain standards in social indicators. But from there, could we move forward and achieve, say, for example, if we could achieve IMR of 20, and from there to the current 10, can we move forward to the European levels of, say, 4 or 5? The incremental change is very difficult. So moving from 50 to 30 maybe is easier compared to a movement from, say, 10 to 9 or 9 to 7. So that is where Kerala is stuck now, I think. So we need to rethink about our achievements and also reflect on the sustainability of the model that we have created, the so-called model. And also, as Professor Harilal pointed out, we are affected by developments elsewhere in an increasing manner. But at the same time, we were beneficiaries of the globalization, which probably started long back. Because Kerala was able to export human capital from 1970s, and we benefited from that. But could we translate that gain, those gains, those remittances, and that experience for making changes in our society? I think that is where we faltered. As Devesh Kapoor in one of his studies points out, if a center, if a region, if one after exporting people, they are not able to take advantage of the first round of remittances that they receive, they will not be able to do that. That is what history tells us. But can we reverse that? Can we create a new history in Kerala? That is one question I'd like to throw up. So earlier in the panel also, I had raised this question. Could we anticipate the in-migration of workers from North India? So if we are calling this a Kerala model, we should have done that. But so we were sort of sleepwalking in a certain direction. So we need to think of the sustainability of this model, definitely. And the fiscal aspect, which Professor Isaac pointed out also, is an outcome of this. So is, again, fiscal sustainability, is that not important? So what is the way out? It was interesting to listen to.
We have to discuss.
Yeah, I will wind up in 2 minutes. And Professor Isaac pointed out, this GST issue, we thought that as we are a consumer state, we are going to benefit from GST. But it is very interesting, as he points out, that we are not benefiting because we are not producing here. So that also point to the need of increasing the level of economic activity in the state. So I will conclude by drawing attention to one piece which I wrote recently in the Hindu, where I argued that we need to change our approach towards capital and growth. Unless we grow, unless we attract capital, and also there we will not be able to move forward and get out of this cycle, unless we attract private capital. By public sector investment alone, we will not be able to move out of this. That is my point. And as I raised a question, a dream, can we dream of making Kerala a 0.5 trillion economy in the coming, say, 10 or 15 years? Currently, we are if I am wrong, correct me, about $115 billion economy today. So can we double? And again, double once again, so that we approach 0.5 trillion in the next 10 or 15 years. As Tamil Nadu is dreaming of becoming a $1 trillion economy in the next 10 years. Thank you.
I saw 0.5 trillion is nothing.
Thank you very much. Kerala model is, there is nothing like Kerala model. Whatever other people are saying in office, you have to debate about it. You read what Amartya has said, you also Bhagavati and Banagari has written rubbish about the Kerala model. Define it and even I have reverted.
Next.
Thank you. I'm Hemant Kumar from Etuanirappan.
He's the grandson of my professor, a very veteran professor. He was my guide, PhD guide. The first PhD of Kerala is mine, and that was guided by his father, then his great father, grandfather.
Thank you, Professor Ruben. And thank you, Professor Joseph, for inviting me to this very interesting gathering. I will just make one very brief point, which actually supports what my own student, Emmanuel, just mentioned. There are strict limits to what the government can do. And Professor Thomas Isaac himself very clearly pointed out, our development so far has been very much state-centric. But the state has its limits. Now, Professor Isaac concentrated on, how those limits could be relaxed a little bit if instead of collecting, say, 8% as tax, we could increase it to, as we did once upon a time, to 12%. Yes, obviously, that would help a lot in terms of the state government's finances and in terms of what the state government can actually do. That would help a lot. But I think the point that, concerns me, and Emmanuel just raised it, why is it that, we are unable to invite private capital? Why is it that, of all the states in India, we perhaps have the best qualified labor? Again, I'm not going to go into any deep statistics, but this is just from if you compare the education levels across Indian states, we have much better education facilities. We have a much more educated population than other Indian states. So investors should be flocking to Kerala, and why is that not happening? And if we do not address that question, and let me put it in Professor Thomas Isaac's own preferred indicator, which is the tax over GDP ratio. Professor Isaac talked about the numerator, tax over GDP, the tax that the government is collecting. I want to point out, we should actually be concentrating on the denominator. Our GDP could be much higher, but it can be higher only if we bring in far more private investors. Now, I know that there is, a huge debate going on over the last maybe a century and a quarter about, the right role for the private entrepreneurship and the government. And, the consensus seems to be that both are equally needed. Hajun Chang has written very well.
Questioning that.
But the point is, we still seem to be stuck in a place where our forward progress seems to be entirely the government's responsibility. And the only thing I would like to point out is maybe we should think about ways to change that. Get the government out of, leading. It has done more than its fair share. Kerala's government over the last 75 years has done, or let's say since 1957, has done far more than, most other state governments in other parts of India. Perhaps Tamil Nadu has done, as much as we have. But compared to North Indian states, our state government has done a lot, but it has reached its limit. And now the only point that I want to make is we need more private investment
Yes.
in infrastructure and other things as well.
That's a very valid point that we have to, we are not a state-centric now. Look at our education, look at our health set. We are all highly commercialized. They are not, so while we have done the job, it is for us to maintain the quality of our services. What is there is in all infrastructure, all the major public sector services, the quality is suffering. That is partly due to the lack of money to go and also corruption. The issue of corruption is central and it has to be raised at some point or other. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Justin George from St. Paul's, Kalamasheri. He's not come. Watch. Now, Mallika will be coming online. Mallika, are you online now? She has some. Okay. Mithun, you are here. Right. Dr. Radha is online. I'll call her after Mithun. Dr. Radha, we will be calling you after Dr. Mithun.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And it's not an argument. It's not an argument, just a concern. I'm raising just a concern. It's about the structure of economy. As when we are looking at the structure of our economy, we can see that trade-related sector, which constitutes nearly 20 or 22% of the total GVA, and construction sector is nearly 40%. But when we coming to the manufacturing sector, 7 to 8%. My question is, when the contribution of the trade-related sector is, which is the highest sector, and when it is contributing the 22 or 20% of the total value added, what employment is created in this sector? Because basically trade, petty shop, or mall, or those kind of employment, more than 50% of the employment is, I think it is not good quality employment at all. They highly exploitative, more than 8 hours of work, and also no social security at all. But the structure of the economy is the basic reason for the creation of this kind of employment in the economy. On one side, and second, on the one side, the construction sector, they already told. But in the construction sector, we are getting much more better paid. But the most of the employment are by the migrant workers. So my question is, the structure of the economy, even the 50% of our GVA is from trade, construction, and also from the real estate, etc. It means that our economy is much more vulnerable to the external shock. One. The second, even agriculture sector are said rubber, which is also vulnerable to external shock, and migration, which we know external migration is also vulnerable to external shock. Whether our economy is much more vulnerable to external shock as compared to any other state economy in the and also the employment generated in the system. In the long run, whether the government can deliberately attempt to the restructure or something to do the restructure economy. This is the first concern which I have. And secondly, which is not directly related with the issue here, discussed here, but related with the development. I have seen that the scheduled tribe community in Kerala, we have around 40 individual tribes in the state. We know that some of the individual tribe, like Malayarians and the Marathis and Mavilas, these are some of the tribe which can be easily assimilated into the mainstream society, and they can get a better employment and all the benefit of the affirmative action by the government. But there are communities like Pania, which came under 80% of total scheduled tribe community in the state, which is the major individual tribe in the state. But when coming to them, they are not benefiting at all. So we can have a much more individual tribe-wise policy rather than a policy for the scheduled tribe as a whole. And also there are some of the tribe, for example, Pania, Kata, Naika, that's kind of for them, it is very difficult for them to assimilate into the mainstream society. So in that case, we need not a financial support. We need much more social process in order to assimilate this community into the mainstream society. We need a social change rather than the financial support. They may be getting land and house and every financial benefit. It doesn't mean that they will be assimilated into the mainstream society. And that kind of policy we needed. We have to plan. This is the concern which I am raising.
Thank you.
Extremely valid point that the Harijans are in Harijan colony and the tribals are there in the tribal area, Adivasi area. Why are they not integrated in the mainstream and the economy is a great issue that needs to be debated further, more intimately.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Radha, for joining us. Radha is now joining us from Australia. Yeah, over to you. I request Mallika is also there. Professor Tonquist, you will be the final person to speak. Not final. Important. Right. Over to you. Please unmute your mic, please. Unmute your mic, please.
Respected Dr. Uman, other esteemed speakers and dear participants, it's great to be amidst the KEA organization. Even I'm far removed by distance now. And I also feel I'm not a marsha, as you say, so I'm not very much, because it's an university professor-centric program nowadays. What I would like to say is that I'm in great awe seeing that the institution has grown to such gigantic stature, and I'm also very happy to have been a torchbearer of the organization, to start it from a cryogenic state in Kerala. Because when I met Dr. Chandramohan, he said, you have to re-energize the organization in Kerala. I said, I would do it on one condition, that Dr. Uman is at the helm of it. So that is it. So coming to the, I have given a short write-up saying that in education sector, I followed it through the budget studies. In education sector, primary and higher education has been given much importance, and primary and other sectors should also be given importance, because there are guidelines in the annual status of education report every year. Then that is there for education. Not only that, I have seen that a culture of earn while you learn can be introduced in Kerala. If no other state can do it, Kerala can do it. Then I've gone to the health sector, where I have found that mental health sector has to be re-energized, and moreover, there should be an occupational therapy clinic attached to every geriatric center or differently abled centers in hospitals. Then micro and small medium enterprises also have touched on, saying that this sector should be given more focus, so that we could give more employment, which is a very Achilles heel in Kerala. Then tourism also I have seen. Tourism sector, I think we are getting that much income from tourism because Kerala is naturally beautiful. What about the facilities for tourists? We have to touch on that issue also, so that we can step up the income from tourism for the state. I've given the short note. I hope it will be distributed. At such short notice, I could contribute this much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ratha. Your note has already been distributed. Thank you very much. I think
Oh, Radha is
yeah.
the first person,
to get.
first 10 people who approached me to start with the KEA. She is my MA student. She is my first PhD.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Mallika, Mallika, could you please unmute and speak out?
Yes, sir. So I'm here. So last time I couldn't unmute, that's why. And now I'm just, I know that the three scholars are discussed about Kerala economy, and my woman had given that three issues are there in Kerala. That one is over bulging of the service sector, another thing is the killing of environment, and the third one is the education sector problem. And this Isaac sir explained about the GDP tax ratio and the problem related to consumer states, and the Harilal sir explained it on the basis of the global scenario we have to discuss about Kerala. So I just, before I'm explaining, Midun had pointed out specific problems. We have to address specific problem. The same thing I also would have to discuss. And another thing is that in Kerala, we just entered in the third stage. I'm very optimistic about the growth and the tax collection and all, because we entered in the third stage, and in silent revolution is happening. The new generation is trying to enter in Kerala, and they started doing some kind of knowledge-based entrepreneurships and all. So that kind of one movement is going on. So that will be shown in the tax revenue or GDP figure after some more years. It's a beginning stage, and the government is also giving support. So that part is very clear. But at the same time, the government have to focus, I think, that in the gender issues. Gender issues, we focus only on the poverty eradication and gender. We focus only on these poor people. But majority of the females, major portion of the unemployed persons we are talking about, these are female and educated females. They are stick upon in the household, and we never recognize the importance of the household production, non-commoditized production, which is used as the reproduction role of this female. That kind of part is not recognized in Kerala. So we have to just think about it. And the opportunity cost of female to enter in job market, and the scarcity of the job market, which can be substituted to this kind of in this area. And we are having a scarcity in this kind of specific labor market area, where the old age people, the Kerala, the demographic transition and the old age people are increasing, and these differentially abled and the people who are having health issues and the child caring scenario. On these areas, the labor supply is a very major problem, and that part had not touched till date. And another thing is that without addressing this kind of problem, and our wage, male-female wage rate ratio, if we are checking, when compared to all India average, Kerala's wage difference is very high. Females are getting very lesser wages, though the education-wise, they are having higher qualification and all. So this part should be specifically discussed, and this is the major reason related to this majority of the issues, the atrocities and harassment, all these problems and dependency issues and all. So this part should be given more importance in Kerala point of view. That's what I would like to concentrate. And also another thing is that in tribal areas that Midun had pointed out, and all the tribal departments, why, I don't know why this tribal department are situated in urban areas. All the tribal units are in rural area. So why we could have separate tribal policies, and also the office can be there in that particular area. So that kind of, and why we need all these people have to go to the urban area to get this kind of benefits and all. A lot of policies are there, schemes are there. So why these schemes, the implementation of these kind of things can be integrated with this education institution development studies, as a lot of curriculum, and education sector can be incorporated this way to implement and to we have a voluntary system is there now, and they can create social entrepreneurs, and they can that kind of encouragement should come from the education system. Another thing is that somebody point out that ma'am, pointed out that in our education system, we are given more importance to this kind of higher education. Why we are not conducting it is this kind of importance to primary classes. The first standard student, we should have public examination up to the 12th and 13 years of age, and after that, why we need to control these students in universities and all. So I think that in that way curriculum also we need more importance in the primary sector. Another one point I have to just mention that in the differentially abled and old age people, a lot of products are available. So the individual specific products, that production and all, so that kind of that area should be taken into consideration. Another thing, that housing sector.
Thank you very much.
And one more point, housing sector, why we need to, ecology killing area we are discussing, why we need to have one kind of house construction policies which the government is implementing. We should have different segments and the construction and all. We can implement different types of norms and then considering the environment. So that's all. Thank you. Thank you.
She has raised a gender issue. That is the major point she has raised. Which should not be omitted. Okay.
Dr. Nirmal Roy, Kannur University.
Hello. Thank you, KEA.
Tell from which.
Okay. Okay, I am from the Department of Economics, Kannur University. Thank you, KEA, for this opportunity and for the wonderful lecture series you have been conducting. Let me very briefly highlight some of the reflections, and one is regarding the whole question of land. Kerala's land reforms, reputed land reforms, is more than 50 years old. And where are we right now? I think the term used by Emmanuel, the sleepwalking kind of thing, I think we have left afterwards that. But if you are looking at the pattern of land holdings or the kind of urban growth we have been witnessing, I think we are not giving much head into it, because land is not now seen only as a productive asset, and it has moved from that to space, and that to a financial asset. So if you are looking, seeing Marx or even David Harvey, now space is the most valuable asset. But are we doing any justice to the legacy of land reforms? Because land is not being utilized in that way, because land is such a productive asset if you are looking at the tax potential also. Just to highlight the case of Bangalore, the Bangalore city collects around 3,000 crores of rupees as property tax. And that is not just like property tax alone, because they have invented so many instruments, as seen globally. I think Kerala also should be looking in that, and we lack, an innovative mechanisms to monetize or even collect innovative ways of collecting. So I think that should be an area where we should be looking, because we had such a good legacy of land, but unfortunately due to the policies that we have been pursuing, there is a quite lot of inequality also in it. Because if you are looking at the land holding entities, the largest entity holds more than 50,000 acres of land, and the lowest is 3 cents maybe, or maybe unequal land. So I think there should be a kind of sectoral emphasis given to land. And second thing, I just want to highlight the kind of higher education system we have been following. Yeah, true. We are having a very vibrant and a kind of higher education system. Potential for research and development and knowledge economy. But if you are looking at the output of per se, I think 50% of our population's contribution to labor, I think that's a serious case, because we have been investing in such good quantities in higher education system, but still, if you are looking at the finite product, I think more than 50%, the work participation rate is still low. I think if you want to have a increased thing, we should look into their contribution to GDP also. I think we should have a startup projects or kind of gender dimension towards it by kickstarting their kind of investments. So, I just want to link it with KIFBI also, because I think we have been investing in land and infrastructural projects, but I think if you are looking at the potential revenue sources arising out of such infrastructure projects, I think there are a lot of scope still left on it. Thank you.
Higher education, we're all proud of the higher education, but look at the BA, BSc courses. BA course, 3 courses for the last 40, 50 years. Economics, so many economics. Economics, English, history, finished. Linear, and even your self-financing colleges are linear progression of this. Is this higher education? Okay.
Prasad from Sri Shankara College.
Thank you. First of all, let me express my deep sense of gratitude to Professor KJ Joseph for inviting me to such an important academic session discussing on directives for the future of Kerala economy. And we all know that after the shock of the pandemic, the Kerala economy has been experiencing a remarkable growth of about 12%. Even though after it's out of negative growth rate in the preceding period, and the commendable effort by the government is really appreciated in that respect. And here I would like to bring out 3 important points as my comments. One is about the social infrastructure. As for any growing economy, education and health sector is of paramount importance. Though we are foreigners in many of the education as well as health indices, we have our own issues, and we are always trying to compare the status of these important sectors with other Bimaru states like Bihar or UP, but that is meaningless. And we have to compare our present status with our own status in the past, and we have to find out solutions for improving further. And Emmanuel already mentioned about the limitation we are presently facing. And when you discuss about the health sector, Professor Anita already mentioned about the low morbidity, high morbidity, low mortality syndrome. And that is all about the problem we are facing in the health sector as far as Kerala economy is concerned. And regarding the education, of course, in the case of school education, when you come to gross enrollment ratio, we are comparatively in a better position. But if you look at the net enrollment ratio, you can see that our position is not in a promising level. And if say that is according to the MHRD figures in 2017-18. And if you look at the people participation in education according to the census data in 2011, you can see that the position of Kerala is about 24%. And if you look at the women participation, our the figure is only 26%. And in the case of female participation, our position is 14th. And that is not a promising thing. And if you look at the higher education, you can see that the enrollment is drastically coming down. And so that's the issue we are presently facing. Even though we are allocating a very good amount, a very good budget allocation is there for the development of higher education. Then the second point I would like to raise is about the physical infrastructure. And we know that the pace at which the physical infrastructure development in Kerala is very, very, very low. Yes, I have a personal experience that I'm residing near Kaladi, and if somebody going through the Kaladi through the narrow bridge on the MC Road, that is State Highway 1, you can see that the bottleneck definitely give you a lot of issues, like sufferings because of the traffic problem. And the demand for constructing a new bridge is live for over more than 30 years. And still we are, yeah. Then the third point I would like to raise is about the better physical public life. And from a layman's point of view, and it is high time to check the accountability of the public officers. The reformation should start at the top level. And the leaders should be the role models. And they need to educate their followers, bureaucrats, common people about the importance of maintaining loyalty, then sincerity, honesty, and simplicity while discharging their service in the public domain. And indeed, such a public domain would save a crores of rupees for the betterment of our state. And
Thank
with
you
this,
very
I will I stop. Thank you.
Okay. Accountability is an issue he has raised. That is a key issue that Kerala has to face. Who is accountable to whom?
I think, yeah, I
Okay,
think teachers have an important role there, of course. Yeah. Next is Ratish Krishnan, Government College, Nedumangal.
Now we are discussing about Kerala economy, directives for future. So I'll start with the quote by Mahatma Gandhi, the future lies in the present. So I want to focus mainly on resource mobilization that Thomas Isaac sir talked about. We came to limit related to tax, but I think we can still do something regarding the resource mobilization. Especially I saw a statement in a government document that in 2021-22, total tax raised but not realized stood at rupees 19,921 crore. It is that can be useful to cover our revenue deficit. I want to know more about that from sir. And another question that I read in a government document that total tax raised but not realized stood at rupees 19,921 crore. It's almost around 2% of the GSDP. So it is, and our revenue deficit is 2.2%. So I need more clarity regarding that. And another suggestion is that our professional tax is just 2,500, and it is fixed.
That issue is a very, very, very live issue.
Okay, then I'm talking about the KIFBI thing, and nowadays the liability, the borrowing as part of KIFBI is also, the 15th Finance Commission recommended that it is also a part of the outstanding liability of the government. So my suggestion is that KIFBI have to do or more focus should be on tourism sector, infrastructure development, and some agro processing parks. That the investment should be based on these things. And also Kerala can conduct some sport events, like we are conducting ISL, so we can also conduct it, KSL like that.
Yeah.
So we will get more revenue from that also.
Okay. Sports is a very strong point for Kerala. There is no politics in it. Kerala is top on in regard to politics and sports. How can we make it lively and more productive for the economy and for the state? Okay.
Respected dignitaries and friends, I would like to start from what our Headlal sir told. He says that we should focus on the environmental externalities. I would like to say some things that I observed from my studies. In the case of Kerala, is a highly densely populated state, is suffering from waste generation, management, and disposal. And local government has instituted so many waste treatment plants with the public-private participation. They started waste treatment plant, but 50% of the collected waste is not scientifically disposed. The thing I observed is that from my study, it is observed that majority of the waste treatment plant do not have the sufficient dryer system as well as liquid treatment plant. There is a plant only treats the waste only, but this absence of the treatment plant, waste treatment plant, they running out the water into the water nearby water bodies, and it pollute water and the dumping of the water without drying system also promote also generate environmental quality. So I think that when we start the waste treatment plant,
for the sustainable society or sustainable Kerala, we should focus on the waste treatment plant along with leachate treatment plant and dryer system. The second thing I noticed is that people are ready to pay more for the waste treatment. That is coming to Calicut Corporation. My studies focus on the Calicut City Corporation, and here I can find that the actual payment for the people paid, actual amount they paid is only 100 or 150 rupees, but the people are ready to pay rupees 200 and above in 2019. In 2019, that is clear that people are pay more than the actual payment. So actually the cost of the waste treatment is very high. That's why can we include this public-private participation? Can we culminate the public-private participation for the waste treatment? One thing also I noticed is that a government introduced this type of programs for the environmental quality. That is, they introduce waste collection through Kudumbashree, etc., for the environmental quality. But we should focus on this. This government activities should be rightly directed. So I think that I found that waste generation is more among those who have the waste collection facilities. So this type of when government introduce this type of incentive, it should be rightly directed, I think so. And so we should focus on the effective waste management. That is the scientific disposal of the waste management for a sustainable society, especially for the health and sustainable environment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very good point. Everybody knows the whole issue of solid, liquid, medical, and electronic waste management that is growing now so we have to address this issue, and also the issue of dogs. Stray dogs still. In this talk which I mentioned to you, that was before this government, that issue was there. No wonder the growing population of ubiquitous street dogs keep barking at the policymakers and the public of the state demanding remedial action. That was in 2015 May. Still it is there.
Okay, next is Santosh Verghese, Maharajas College.
So, Honorable Patron and President of the Kerala Economic Association, dignitaries and fellow commentators. So regarding the Kerala economy, the directives to the future, I would like to make 3 observations regarding the topic. The first one is connected with the unique growth and development experience that Kerala has been achieved over the years, starting from 1950s. So we need to have a nuanced position regarding the experience that we have had, especially when we have made an unconventional strategy regarding the growth and development, that is by investing heavily in the social sector or in the human capital, by building human capital on the one side. But on the other side, we are measuring all these achievements, whether in the growth or with respect to the development, all are being made by the conventional yardsticks. So on the one side, we have an unconventional strategy. And on the other side, we are evaluating the fruits of that strategy by using the conventional yardsticks. So this needs to be discussed and debated, because this particular growth and development experience has created what we generally consider as human capital. And human capital is as good enough physical capital as theorized by none other than Gary Becker. So on the one side, we have generated this process of growth and development has generated a very important resource. But on the other side, the traditional, the productive sectors, especially the agriculture and the industry, are organized or conducting their activities in the traditional manner. So this is the resource that we have generated. So when we generate human capital, normally the mobility of the labor will increase. So when mobility increases, normally that labor will look for better avenues. And we have all the migration theories starting from Todaro. So it is nothing unusual that we move to the other places. So, but that is not good for the economy. We need to change the traditional productive sectors, especially the agriculture and the industrial sector, in such a way that we have generated a huge resource. So the activities needs to be restructured by utilizing these valuable resources. So one example I can suggest is with respect to the agriculture sector, we need to focus upon the agri-processing industries or value addition. So raw agricultural products will not fetch much price. Even in the case of cash crops also, the shelf life is very limited. We cannot keep that product for a long period. So agri-processing needs to be implemented. And for successfully conducting this agri-processing, highly educated, highly skilled labor is a very important requirement. Only then the technology could be easily assimilated, easily adopted. So such a type of restructuring is needed with respect to the agricultural sector and in the industrial sector. So that is the first observation that I would like to make. So this is a very important challenge the economy needs to be addressed. Second point is with respect to the shrinking fiscal space, as pointed out by Thomas Isaac sir. So this fiscal space is shrinking year and year afterwards, especially when the passing of this FRBM Act. At the center, we only have fiscal rules in the sense that it's not an act, but at the state level, we have fiscal enactments so that we need to restrict the fiscal deficit at 3% level. But for the center, it is only rule, government rule. It is fiscal rule, but it's only made as a government rule. So which means that the center need not adhere to that level. So which means that there is no level playing field. The center can do whatever be the thing. The fiscal deficit is around 6%. And there is absolutely no theoretical reason to say that it must be set at 3% level. No theoretical reason is there. So it is all based on
that is
so that fiscal
well-known Maastricht Treaty tradition is copied, and this is very arithmetically fixed.
Yeah.
It is a FRBM Act is a very nonsensical.
Yes. So that is the second point. So we need to debate, we need to develop alternatives with respect to that. And one thing I would like to add with respect to the remark made by Joseph sir, we need to focus rather than we need to focus upon the expenditure management. Whatever be the public expenditure made by the government, either through debt or by other sources, the management of the expenditure is more important. There is absolutely no leakage. Every expenditure, every paisa spent must be
accounted. Accountability issue is very critical.
So the FRBM Act needs to be restructured.
That is, we have said that.
The third point is that with respect to the capital expenditure. So the capital expenditure, because of that FRBM limit, KIFBI has been proposed as a game theoretic response to these fiscal rules.
Okay.
But currently that KIFBI has also been faced with a lot of limitations, lot of restrictions from the union government. But another possibility is there that the central government union government is also using other methods of raising revenue in the form of asset monetization, things like that. But that asset monetization has very important concerns are there. But Kerala can develop an alternative by ruling out all that concerns, and there are some scope is there by which we can capitalize upon that particular aspect. So that also needs to be discussed. Thank you.
Yeah, there are a lot of good points, but there is a deficit of time. Dr. Shanavas. Yeah.
Respected dignitaries and fellow colleagues, friends. I'm starting from the original discussion that Thomas Isaac has been started here. We are very much convinced about the future prospects of GST, and we are very optimistic, and we share the optimism shared by Professor Thomas Isaac. But at the same time, being a citizen of Union of States, I may feel that our immediate government or immediate state should retain its financial autonomy to some extent. That means our control over the indirect taxes. That was our financial, our constitutional right. Should not have been surrendered. That is a feeling, and I'm sharing this.
Okay.
And one more thing, with respect to the centrally sponsored schemes, and there is always a political benefit of centrally sponsored schemes, and that goes to the central government. But when we are reducing the allocation, when the central government is reducing the allocation or withdrawing the scheme, the political cost falls on the respective state governments. And this is not about the centrally sponsored schemes, it is about central schemes also, fully sponsored central schemes. And therefore, whenever a centrally sponsored scheme withdraws or allocation cut down, the political cost falls down, and the central government central government need not worry about the political cost, and it is the state government has to worry about that. And not only this, the Financial Commission is a constitutional body.
Finance Commission.
Finance Commission is a constitutional body, and therefore its accord is mandatory. But the centrally sponsored schemes is creating some conditions.
Yes.
Unless the funds should be transferred to states without such conditions.
Okay.
And therefore that should be discussed. And one important point that I have heard from Professor Harilal sir, and why the media is not discussing all such kinds of things when we are talking about financial strangulation, while the media is not discussing. And my point is that it is not the media. We have not only to blame the media, we have to blame the economists, our main economists, why they are not talking vociferously on these matters. Thank you.
He has raised the issue of centrally sponsored scheme. It should be normative. If Finance Commission is based on normative criteria, allocation, horizontal allocation is made, and vertical allocation based on normative criteria. Why not bring this? And states like Kerala, which are far ahead of so many other social friends, suffer because of this. Whether it is state contribution or in terms of the model that is given by the center. Okay. Next name.
Yeah, Dr. Shinowaki from SB College, Selbergman College.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll just take 3 minutes. I would like to comment on the prospects of agriculture in Kerala with a special emphasis on the role of collective action. The challenges facing the agricultural sector in Kerala are well documented. I'm not any longer going into that. There is no doubt that agriculture in the state remains largely unviable today. And if we have to ensure profitability in the sector, a number of initiatives are required. There is a need to refocus on agricultural diversification from the generally specialized farming practices prevalent in the state today. It is required to visualize a critical role for agribusiness in the state, which would enable agricultural sector to augment rural income through production, marketing, processing, farm tourism, and other diversified activities. Fragmentation of land holdings, although remains a major challenge, there is a need to encourage mechanization wherever possible and incorporate advanced scientific methods, including informatics, in our cultivation practices. In this connection, the experiences shared by the group of farmers that visited Israel recently under the initiative of the Kerala Agricultural Department to learn about high-tech farming methods, recycling techniques, micro-irrigation systems, and climate-friendly farming practices are very insightful. Against the backdrop of shrinking paddy fields in Kerala, the possibilities unleashed by drip irrigation technology, as observed in the deserts of Israel, has great potential to direct us in the path towards attaining food security. The state government should urgently seek the possibilities of collaboration with MASHA, the Agency for International Development Cooperation in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel. Finally, against this background, let's explore the role of collective action in the agricultural development of Kerala. Gordon Marshall defines collective action as the action taken by a group either directly or on its behalf through an organization in pursuit of members' perceived shared interests. As observed by Menzen Dick and others, collective action has the following features: the involvement of group of people, shared interests, common and voluntary actions to pursue
Please come to your point.
shared interests. Yes, I'm coming to that point, sir. Just 2 more minutes. Today,
you take it, but say the point.
Yes. Today, the role of collective action is increasingly analyzed in the context of agriculture and rural development. The collective or joint action undertaken by farmers' organizations, farmers' associations, or by an informal group of farmers are beneficial for many reasons, such as reducing the transaction costs, to collect information on innovation, to comply with the new legislation, to take market opportunities, increasing the economies of scale, sharing the knowledge, and increasing the capacity and even efficiently resolving local issues. The benefits of collective action are better reaped in decentralized governance systems. Kerala is regarded as one of the most decentralized states in India. Over the years, the state has built a strong set of democratic institutions at the local level, and they have been a pillar of support for the farmers also in the state. For example, during the late 1980s, the state government initiated a program of group farming for paddy cultivation. Padashekara Samitis, or collectives of paddy farmers, represent an institution that began as part of this group farming effort, and these Samitis are active in Kuttanad and Palakkad regions of Kerala. Two other successful models of collectives as promoted by the state of Kerala is Vegetables and Fruit Promotion Council Keralam and Kudumbashree. Yes, there have been many initiatives of collective action in the state. However, in the absence of coordinated and intensified efforts, we are unable to reap the benefits and realize their full potential. Thus, there is a need to further strengthen the functioning of these initiatives of collective action and extend similar initiatives to diversified lines of agricultural production in the state. It is a paradox that the high achievements of Kerala in technical education have not translated into large-scale adoption of high-tech farming in Kerala. There is a need to larger institutional support that should support and enable high-tech farming through the ambit of collectives in Kerala. This is an area where we truly have huge potential, but remains as an area largely untapped and underutilized. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'm Mr. Sujit from Government Burnham College. Okay. So I think now Professor Ole.
Ole, you have disappeared.
For the information of others, Professor Ole has been, I mean, he
Yeah,
has been
very active.
Yeah, please.
Associated with Kerala.
Yeah.
And the whole-
Malayali from Norway.
He's a
Thank
Malayali
you.
Norway.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think that I would be able to get up at 5:30 in the morning, but I woke up at 5 without an alarm bell because apparently somewhere inside I was so excited to anyway listen to you. And I was fascinated by Professor Isaac's presentation about the potential of taxing, but the inability of taxing to gain resources. And then adding Professor Halalal's emphasis on collective action. We mustn't give up the potential of collective action. Now, putting these two things together, I thought it's, of course, very naive, perhaps, but the possibility of what you could call a kind of voluntary taxation in terms of putting more emphasis on facilitating cooperatives and investment by workers and professionals themselves in their own managed companies and service outlets. You could do this also in welfare sectors. I'm not saying this is the best way of doing things, but without the possibility of increasing taxation for public sector engagement, one could perhaps spend more energy in facilitating cooperatives and cooperative investments and investments by the professionals and the workers themselves. Also within the welfare sector. We shouldn't give that up to the private sector only. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think Professor Isaac, would you?
Both of
I
you
think respond very
very brief.
Anyway, we are going to have continuous.
We should have.
So the first point is about
You can have.
the importance of private investment. There's no debate on that. The only reason the state government is taking initiative to ensure the infrastructure deficit is resolved is to ensure or attract private investment in there. Because this is one of the key barriers to private investment in Kerala. Of course, there are other issues of ease of doing business, but without sufficient infrastructure, there can be no investment. Therefore, then the question of what is the appropriate ratio comes in. There is no permanent, everlasting ratio. This 3% is used by European Union for the Maastricht Treaty, and then everybody used it. You tell me, you study economics. What is an economic theory which tells that you have to keep it at 3%? So I am Keynesian by persuasion. It says that deficit ratio should be varying with the economic conditions. Now there is a very interesting paper of Dr. Ken Raj, one of his early papers, about the significance of Keynesian macroeconomics for developing countries. So in the case of developing countries, the deficit ratio will have to be, say, taking into account the development requirement. That I would say is not same for every state in India. We already have a situation where number of states do not use the 3% allocation. They borrow much less than 3%. So, but Kerala today at this strategic moment need to have investment in infrastructure, therefore needs a higher rate. And if you don't allow, okay, perfectly legal method of extra budgetary borrowing, the model of which I talked to you, which central government is also doing, which state government has been doing, but now this is done at a much larger scale. So that's it. But 15th Finance Commission has said nothing about extra budgetary borrowing and so on. A sudden wisdom that has dawned upon the Union Finance Minister. So, in fact, Finance Commission has said nothing about it. Of course, Finance Commission has been very conservative. I think we have been saved by COVID, but for not COVID, they would have cut the fiscal deficits ratio from 3% to 1.75%, because he has been arguing for that. So I think that's it. I will stop here. We didn't go into other many issues that are involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
We hardly had any time for discussion. And in fact, most of you might have taken more time and presented more interesting things. All your presentations were very brief. In fact, now we should have opportunity to have more detailed presentations because some of you have come with very detailed presentations, but had to be very brief. So I don't want to comment on, because no, you cannot leave out any particular presentation. There are many people have said things to which the panel should respond, but we hardly have any time. It's almost 2 o'clock. So please excuse for not making comments at this stage.
Water science, and what should we wait for?
1 minute.
1 minute. Okay.
Distinguished panelists, fellow commentators. So this is this meeting is actually the finale of the 17 lecture series KEA and Gulati Institute organized. This is one of the best series that I have ever heard, because if KJ remembers me, myself, KJ, and Anita Kumari was the 3 person who attended almost all lectures. So we have come to the last day of this, and this is a wonderful session. On behalf of KEA, I extend our sincere thanks to Uman sir for directing us, and hope that you will continue to patronize us.
Okay.
I also thank Professor Thomas Isaac, Professor Harilal, and other commentators for joining with this. I also thank KJ for providing the necessary help for all the programs. I hope that he will continue to do so. Not but the least, for entire lecture series. I don't know why he forgot. But the role played by Anita Kumari was very great. It's there. Because for every lecture, she used to call me 4 or 5 times to push many things. So I take this opportunity to extend our sincere thanks on behalf of KEA to Anita Kumari, and also I extend our sincere thanks to all the technical staff of GIFT for helping us to make this function a grand success. Thank you.
Friends, we have come to the close of the session, and 17 lectures were very productive. I was also the second lecturer. Thomas Isaac was the first. Then Kepikan and so many. As he suggested, this should be brought. I've been hanging on him and driving the point to him that you should at least a selected number should be brought out, because they were all studied responses. Friends, I am just requesting you, there is the business session. Either we go for lunch, which is now everything we can finish off, that will be nice. That is my suggestion. But if people, that will be better, because I have sat through. My daughter is here. She will be surprised to see me sitting. How many hours? 3, 4, 5 hours. At one stretch, only to see the young faces reacting. I am also imposing myself and all that. But all seeing everything.
Yeah, I think we have one before the business session, we are going to have a cake cutting for the youngest person, our person here, and I invite Professor Isaac to. Who will cut? You have to cut it. Yeah, birthday boy.
I can't give it to him. എല്ലാവർക്കും ചെല്ലണം. അതിന് വേണ്ടി ഉണ്ടോ? You tell
Only we are going to have a cake cutting ceremony to celebrate the birthday of Professor M.A. Women. We are not going to say this is the 9th birthday.
90%.
90. Yeah, for all others, you are welcome to join for a cup of cake with us online. Right. Yeah.
I have to be sustained.
Yeah.
Because I cannot stand long.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Many happy returns of the day.
Come here, please.
ഭയങ്കര ക്രീമാണല്ലോ.
Marble cake. I bought it. കുറച്ച് പേർക്ക് അങ്ങ് എടുത്തു കൊടുക്കും. കയ്യിൽ നിന്ന് എടുക്കുന്നില്ല.
Enough for me, enough for me.
This is
Isaac
സാറിന് കൊടുക്കും. Right. കേക്ക് നമുക്ക് കിട്ടിയ പിന്നെ നമ്മള് കളയുവോ? കൊടുക്കണേ.
എല്ലാവരും എടുക്കണം.